about the plan. I'm on. Really? 5 seconds. I don't. Oh my God. Hey, I promise you, those of you at home, do not ever have Josh count down shit for you. Okay? Don't sit here. Don't
I
sit
plead
no
the fifth.
calendar or anything. He's the worst in the universe.
I plead the fifth.
Yeah,
I just want everybody to know that.
whatever.
I plead the fifth.
Jesus Christ. Anyway, hey everybody, welcome to another class, session number 28. We got a lot of fun stuff to cover. But I got a couple announcements first before we get started. By the way, I had a good week this week. Hopefully everybody at home had a good week. If not, my prayers go out to you. Hey, by the way, I just found out that Chris Foster likes the Cowboys. Man, he can't win for losing, can he? Anyway, points. I'm gonna leave it alone. From the Lakers to the Cowboys, I don't even get it. Like for personally, let me just say this real quick for those of you at home. I'm only wearing this old Raiders cap because when I was in school, this is no exaggeration. When I was in the first grade, for lunch, I was either in Markham. I think I was at Markham in the first grade, in East Oakland. And for lunch, for special days, you know what they would do for us? They would play Raiders highlights for a whole hour. And we would be so excited as kids just watching football highlights. I'm not lying. So when I grew up, Raiders, they almost like, they hypnotized us to to turn us into Raider fans. And so Raiders became part of your Oakland blue-collar town identity. So when I saw the old school Raiders logo, I was like, yo, I want to rock that logo because it reminds me of a time when I used to actually watch football, which now today I can't tell you not one football player. Well, Tom Brady, that's all I got for you. I don't know anybody else. And Shannon Sharp, he already gone. So I ain't got much for you in football, but this is really my childhood in this hat. So just want to let y'all know that. Couple announcements real quick. So Alameda College has registrations this week. And I think it was going on since last week, whatever. If you take a single business class, like say you did some area in business you want to work on, accounting or logistics or your writing skills, your business writing skills, you believe if you take one class, they'll pay you $500? Okay, that's crazy, right? If you read behind the story, think about 2,000 people join and take them up on that offer. That's $1 million to get people to attend your school for one semester. Ain't that crazy? So they have cash out. So right now, if there's a business course you want to take, this is an excellent opportunity where it's like well, you can be anything. If there's something you want to take at Alameda College they offer, just look at the classes that they offer. You take one class, they will pay you $500 to take a class, not even a whole like 2, 3, 4, 5, just a single class. Just how you gonna say something? Huh?
Does it have to be in person or can it be an online class?
I don't know, but you can check it with them. But Stephanie, who's responsible for us migrating over here to Alameda, brought to my attention last week. I forgot to announce it last week. So those of you that don't live in the Bay Area, those of you like East Coast or in LA, that's crazy, right? $500 for a single class. But that's kind of cool because you get rewarded for learning some stuff. That's a double reward. And as economists, you don't even lose. That's just a hell of an investment because one of the greatest investments you can ever make is knowledge. So you receive knowledge in addition to just $500 for a little bit of spending money while you're up here. So that's just one side note. How many of you guys got a chance to listen to the podcast we posted Monday? Just one person? Okay, 2 people? Okay, yes. I don't want to turn this into a one-on-one discussion. Next week, listen to the podcast from this week and next week's podcast because next week's podcast is going to be a little bit more challenging. And I'm going to pose some questions to challenge some thoughts. I'm going to start posting podcasts that explain some of these principles deeper that we've been going through because I can promise you there is another way of thinking on the other side of the fence. The side of the fence that most of us are used to having conversations on, we talk based upon our exposure. So let me say this, okay? Human beings, and this is in a podcast you guys just posted recently. I just want to just post it recently, the last one. And he highlights how human beings don't seek truth. We seek adaptation over truth. So our rationalization is based upon the people we hang out with. Rarely do we have a broad, free-thinking form of rationalization unless somebody taught you that technique. And so even when you think you are arguing truth, you are arguing a rationalization. You are using the rationalization of the tribal group you belong to identify your truth. That's why Republicans and Democrats really can't see the other side, because they're talking to the same people every day to build their truth. And so there is a whole different way of thinking. And what I'm going to start doing is posting podcasts of people who are displaying this whole different form of thinking that you guys rarely ever get exposed to. And if you do, they just come off as some brilliant, superior business person or strategist, or, they're real advanced. You might think they're a CEO of a company or a PhD professor, and it's not. Their education alone doesn't make them unique. It's their exposure that makes them unique. And they're using different principles of thought, different methodologies on how they arrive at certain outcomes. And so please don't try to stay lazy and stick with me, because I'm going to lose you. If you try to stay in this class from to December and try to be lazy and just try to use your personal rationalization, I am stepping outside the realms of your rationalization as this class continues to move forward. So Court advanced and kind of conditioned and it started to prep you for expanding your rationalization. My goal is to make it where some of these ideas you will not get for weeks. So you will hear me, but if you don't say, hey, let me go back and review that on my own, the chances of you holding on to this material is close to zero. It just is. Because it's like going to a foreign country or where people are doing things different and then trying to remember their whys when you get back home. If you don't stay up on that culture of what they're doing, it's like watching a football game or a basketball game. If you watch a football game and basketball game as a fan, it's totally different than watching a football game as somebody that's in the culture. And so you're just not seeing certain things. You're not translating certain things. You're not even seeing the value. You're not even properly to measure the value of what you're watching. And so you don't know what should get high levels of attention and what should fall in the category of noise. Instead, you're listening to people who are fans of business, and they're sharing their fan ideas around business, and they're telling you to focus on Michael Jordan's shoes, or how high he jumped, or how much he's arguing with the referee, and that's irrelevant to the game strategy. It's irrelevant, right? Or they get you focusing on how bad Michael Jordan played on his one game and how he scored only 6 points, and this is a statement of Michael Jordan's getting too old, and only that he wins the championship at the end of the year, and you realize out of 85 games, they understood that they're going to lose at least 20 or 30 of those games. Are they ranked number 6 going into the playoffs, and are they a 7th seed or 6th seed, and you're like, oh, they're kind of weak, and only to find out that they win the actual championship, right? Because you're looking at the wrong things. And so many of you guys don't realize you're fans of business. You're not on the other side of business. And the language these ideas I'm sharing with you is a different way of talking about the world, that it not only will it help you in business, it should help you, even if you have a job and you want to go into upper management. I'm giving you the information to help you start navigating yourself in that direction. And so just don't rely upon rationalization. 2, please stop telling yourself you're too busy. Let me just keep it. I'm going to talk to you like an economist. Why are you here if you're too busy? Why punish yourself hearing information you can never access? Why tell yourself, I'm too busy to invest in myself even though I want something different? Like, don't ever get comfortable being a walking contradiction. Don't say to yourself, I'm so busy. That's like you said, I'm too busy to be healthy, but I really believe in health. I'm spending a hell of money on my health, but I don't do anything healthy. Like it's a bass awkward way of talking about stuff. What you should be saying to yourself is, how do I carve out time for myself so I can be a better version of myself? But you can't play this. You can't be a slave talking about freedom, because a slave has a schedule, and the schedule keeps you a slave. In order for you to be a free man or a free woman, you have to start discovering time to be free. And freedom requires for you to assess, reevaluate, rethink, reapproach, and change your habits, your methods, your approach, and the way you see things. And so, for somebody who's like, and I'm talking from experience, because when I say I'm an East Oakland kid, it is not as recognizable now because, I've done a lot of climbing on my journey and a lot of learning and a lot of growth and a lot of changes. But if you listen to me closely, you can still hear the hood side of me come out. Because I may not pronounce a word like an academic, or I may not sound like a kid who lives in a mansion somewhere. I may sound different than you because I don't sound like the brother that you saw this morning when you walked to your car. But I can honestly tell you that for somebody who's been migrating and climbing, there really is a different fucking world out there. And the problems you're having, they're not really problems that really exist. They're your perception of the problems that exist. Now, there's some problems, like if you got somebody who's abusing you personally and you don't have the money to get away from them, or you don't have the ability to get away from them for some other reason. And I don't think too many people in this class represent that. That's a real possibility. If you've been abused your whole life and you've been programmed to accept abuse your whole life, that's a form of entrapment. I get all that. But I can honestly tell you the world changes as you change. And if you don't make time for that change, then what you're really doing is you're sitting in my class hoping to gain status so you can repeat some of this shit to somebody else to argue your personal value. That's it. Because at the end of the day, this class is not designed for you to shout somebody else down, tell them their weaknesses. This class is designed for you to shout yourself down and challenge your own weaknesses. The other day, one of the things I train my company is my company would go inside of another company. They would go inside of another company and say, hey, what you're doing is wrong. Tell them, hey, let's cut that shit out. There's no such thing. If I walk to Shakina office and I say, Shakina, this is what you're doing wrong. I don't know how she got to where she's gotten to and how her wrong is actually right. Right? So if I still go inside of a company and just start removing certain things because it doesn't follow some principle or an idea, I'm not taking into consideration real world application and real world challenges that forces her to create some type of mutation of this idea to produce the results she wishes to produce. So what I teach my company now to do is go inside and something that you think is wrong, say, hey, why is it that way? Can you share with me the history of how it came to be? Or is it even on your radar? Is it really a stopgap for a bigger problem? Have you tried any other methods? Otherwise, if you go in there and you just start saying, this is how marketing says, this is what's the right way, this is wrong, this is how you should do it, this is how you shouldn't do it, what you will quickly discover is you're doing the same thing white people do to black people. I don't see you. I'm going to tell you what's wrong, what you should be doing, where you should be going. I don't take into consideration nothing about your reality. And so just know this class is not to raise your status, man. It's not. Matter of fact, the more rational you become, the more irrational the world will see you. The more rational you become, the more irrational the world will see you. If you brought me to a group of Republicans, they can stand me. A group of Democrats, they can stand me. A group of conscious folks, they can stand me. A LGBTQ leadership group, they can stand me. A super pro Latino, they can stand me. Because I'm not going to agree with everything, and I'm going to show them. And once I start to show them holes in their argument, I am threatening the tribal position, and they will reject me based upon that alone, not because their brain is improper, not because my facts are wrong. It's because I don't have tribal loyalties. So, just know, don't use this for status. This is really designed to make you doper. And if you listen to the last podcast, there's one phrase I'm gonna say. He said that it was this monk, and this monk he wrote on his tombstone. It said, all of his life he lived his life to try to change the world. I'm paraphrasing horribly. He lived his whole life to change the world, and then when he realized he couldn't do that as he got older, he tried to change his community. And then when he realized he could do that, he tried to change his family. And then he realized in his dying days, none of that was possible. If he would just change himself, he could have changed all those things. The way you change the world around you, don't focus on who you want to change in this class. Focus on changing yourself. That's how you impact the world around you. It's like, it's nothing. Have you guys ever seen somebody super flawed try to tell you what you should do with your life? That's all of us in this room. The person you listen to the most is the one who's winning from the things that they're doing. Because after a while, people come to you, as well as be an example for people. If you ever watch children learn more from you than what you do than what you say. And yet, many of you guys pride yourself on what you say to your kids. Question is, what are you doing for your kids? Real parenting is not telling kids what to do. Real parenting is growing yourself. So, you know, because every year somebody comes up to me at the end of class and say, no, how do I change this person? And I want to say, I don't know if I can tell you, but you work on yourself. And it sounds like I have a cop out and I don't want to avoid the conversation. But what I'm suggesting is that that's just not how change works. It's really by working on self. So all this external focus of what's wrong with the politics and what's wrong with government, cut that liberal NPR weak ass shit out. And that political dialogue type, that's a new cultural thing that we're doing right now. Everybody's pointing out what's wrong with somebody else. Nobody wants to see themselves. Like, you know, I know some people right now who are part of the LGBTQ community who also engage in drugs. They can tell you everything wrong with everybody in this room to avoid you talking about them. They use their outward judgment to slither away from being observed themselves. It's important you stop and say, who am I? And use all this material to work on that. Cut all that. You know what's wrong with black people? Now, you know, I've been in this class and I can see these things wrong with the corporations, the black people, my company, you, everybody around me. Fuck all that. All right. So we'll do a quick review before we go to the next one. Last week, and listen, two things. This stuff is in the books, as well as go back and review these classes. But I want to go over, show you how strong the class is, so you guys can see what we actually went over. We went over artists versus the business person, right? So, you know, master burgers. I make the best burgers in the world, yet you don't have McDonald's money. Bayesian thinking. Shoulds. We went to shoulds, which is not considering what is the causation. I'm gonna get to causation a little bit more tonight, but just know that causation, if you learn the shoulds in the causation game, I just taught you customer strategy. That is the core and the basis of customer strategy number 2, shoulds. Because once you understand shoulds and you start understanding causation, meaning that, for example, let's say, so my son likes to argue in tit-for-tat arguments, like really small arguments. Like, I said yeah, you said no. I said yeah, I said no, right? You did this the other day. No, you didn't. No, you didn't say yes, you did. No, you didn't. No, you did. Yes, you did. No, you didn't. No, yes, you did. Tit-for-tats. And I said, dude, that type of argument is making you stupid. He said, why? What do you mean making me stupid? Because you don't see causations. I can say yes to something and say no to the exact same thing. And if you don't see the causation, you won't see the consistency. I'll say this again. I can say yes to the same thing today and say no the next day. And you would argue, no, you're not being consistent because you're looking at the yes and the no, not the causation of the yes and the no. If you send the causation over the content, you will see the consistency. But if you understand content over causation, then you would think that I'm being inconsistent. That's how you guys measure a lot of companies, a lot of corporations, a lot of businesses. Oh, this don't make no sense. You're not understanding causation. Let me give you an example of causation. If Court is busy and he's going to a grocery store right now to go do some shopping, and you're making jelly, it's in your best it's in your best interest to give him no more than 3 choices. He's too busy to look at 20 choices, right? But if you're a jelly company and you decide to open up your own jelly factory, it's in your best interest for you to have almost 100 choices, because he's going to a jelly factory to look for different experiences. Both of those methodologies are true, but if you change the context, they're wrong. If he's rushing to the store, you have 100 choices, wrong. But if he's going to a place where he wants to have an experience, right. You see the difference? Your whole business can be ran, if you go back right now and learn your customers' whys, like why they're here, and understand the contextual choices that they're making. Like, for example, are they buying my products online? Are they buying it at work online? Are they buying it at home online? That will change their purchase options. That will change what language and how your website needs to appear. Like, you got to know your customers' why so deeply that you can make better decisions. Otherwise, you're making surface content decisions. Oh, I'm a business, so I should have this, and I should do that, and I should do this, and this is good, and this is bad, this is right, this is wrong. No context. Bad could be good could be bad, depending on the context. So the more you learn about, that's what researchers do. We go in and we understand the why of the customer. And then the strategists take the why and they try to understand the contextual decision that the customer is making and how to best position your products or service or your marketing material to align with the context of the choices the customer is making. This is why it's so stupid to go into right, wrong, good, bad. The black and white thinking makes you a business fool. Now, he taught black and white thinking months ago. I'm extending like he's giving you the foundation. So now when you see in a room and somebody says, well, Shabisha just bought her laptop from us. And what you'll do is your brain will automatically assume, oh, she likes Apple computers. This is why she buys these computers. So we need to buy more Apple computers and continue to have Shabisha show up. Well, it might not be that. It might be the context of she's actually working with a client that works with Apple computers. And if she doesn't have an Apple computer, she can't work with that client. But ultimately, Shabisha loves PCs and her whole circle loves PCs. But if you take a narrow assessment, you order a whole bunch of fucking Apple computers and all of a sudden they're all on your shelves and your competitor is killing it through PCs. Contextual understanding is critical. But yet, that's what the shoulds and the black and white thinking. All this shit is helping you understand the complexity of customer analysis and stop assuming you know your customer because you don't. Human beings always assume, which is a first principle thinking and also a major part of probability thinking. You automatically assume you understand your customers and you don't. And I'm going to show you even deeper reasons why a little bit later. Emotional reasoning. Black community is pretty much, that is our political system. We do a lot of emotional reasoning. And on top of it too, emotional reasoning is very, very popular with why a lot of us are lonely, why a lot of us belong into these very narrow, unthought out positions, because we reached our reasoning point through emotions. But there's something more powerful than emotional reasoning, but emotional reasoning is one of them. We talked about probability thinking. We're going to talk about that a lot more tonight. Probability thinking is a superpower. It's a superpower. By the way, I saw your post too. It's a superpower. You did write something about probability thinking, didn't you? Did you enjoy the book because of probability thinking? See, I read your shit. You be talking about I read your shit. Yeah. It's one of those things that it's probability thinking is one of the things. Probability thinking is something that you have to practice. You don't get it from exposure. Exposure should pique your interest, but I'm going to go into some deeper levels of probability thinking tonight. But when you finally get a chance, for example, one of the people that I think there's two people that could come off the top of my head who are brilliant in probability thinking. One is Nassim Taleb, and the other one is Roy Sutherland. If you listen to those two guys speak, they use probability thinking. And there's another guy, there's two economists from England. I got to find their name. Because they talk in a way that you can still understand what they're saying because they don't have problems explaining it. But these people, probability thinking is hard, and I'm going to explain to you why it's difficult shortly. Bayesian thinking, which is knowing how to seek out the facts. Probable facts. Probable facts is when you think you know something, but you don't realize it's actually probable. It's not factual. You don't know for sure. You just think it may fit. Conditional probability. Once again, that has a lot to do with business strategies and how to think about business. Meaning that just understanding the conditions that shape the probability. Bell curve and fat tail. I'm going to tap into that a lot tonight. Fat tail is so damn tight, and the bell curve is so damn tight as far as how you think. Bell curve is within your intuition. Fat tail is outside of your intuition. So if something happens right now to your life, or something happening around you, your intuition will not help you make good decisions if a fat tail happens. You can make good decisions in bell curve naturally, but you can't process fat tails. Most of us can't process, not through intuition. Not through your tuition. Yeah, intuition. Yeah, through your intuition. Anti-fragility, which is discussing how to live in a world where everything is random and volatile, and how to still exist. Accepting, exploiting volatility and randomness. So a lot of us have been taught to demonize it. How do you build your business to exploit volatility and randomness? So that almost every business you could think of that's really exploded exploits those two categories: randomness and volatility. Even the makeup industry is about volatility and randomness. There's just nothing you could think of where volatility and randomness and instability is not shaped. Like those things shape. Buying a car is based upon volatility and randomness. Like buying a house is based upon volatility. That's why many of you guys don't want an apartment, because you guys are scared of the randomness and volatility of apartments. Like there's industries that are driving all around you, and so what they do is they lean into the volatility and randomness as they try to get you to move as a consumer. And because you've been on the defensive side for so long, you never realize that's a tool you can actually use. Real world versus theory, which is the best way to gain experience is go out there and do some shit. And being over optimistic, which is another level of naivety that makes you that destroys your ability to use probability thinking. And once again, we went over this in details last week, but we covered, as you can see last week, we covered a lot of shit. And by the way, of those 13 subjects, 12 of them are all probability. So it's really it's only one subject, but there's 11 of them. No, 10 of them, 10 of them are all probability. So everything from probability thinking forward is under probability thinking. So Bayesian thinking, probable facts, conditional probability, bell curve, fat tail, anti-fragility, accepting and exploiting volatility and randomness, upside, optionality, real world versus theory, over optimism is all part of probability thinking. So really we only covered 4 subjects last week. Just probability thinking. Like I said, I had to slow down because it's so much there. So if you didn't attend last week's class, go online, watch last week's class, because we covered a lot of heavy hitting shit. So with that being said, I'm going to jump right back into probability right away, and I got some new things I want to introduce to you guys this evening. So let's see if this works out right. This is a really complex class as far as what's in my head, how much shit I got to share. So let's just cross my fingers I get this all right. And if anything doesn't make any sense, I want you guys to ask some questions. Plus, we're going to have a couple of fun exercises. So, ready? Let's do this, Shabisha.
Spies.
So this is where we left off last week, but I want to reread this one last week because if we go to the next slide without having this slide, it's kind of like we need a preference. So go ahead.
Another common asymmetry is people's ability to estimate the effect of traffic on travel time. How often do you leave on time and arrive 20% early? Almost never. How often do you leave on time and arrive 20% late? All the time? Exactly. Your estimation errors are asymmetric, skewing in a single direction. This is often the case with probabilistic decision making.
So let me share real quick. Roy Sutherland is one of the people that I just talked about earlier, highlights how Google Maps is California thinking. and it's very narrow and it doesn't use probability thinking. So you said, what do you mean? So Google Maps will say, what is the fastest route to get from Alameda College to San Francisco Airport? Now, if you take that route, it works until it doesn't. And if it has one accident, the delay could be 30 to 40 minutes. However, you could take a route that takes you 15 to 20, it might take you an extra 20 minutes longer to get there, but the chances of traffic is reduced. So at the end of the day, the best decision to make if you have to be on that plane is take the route that's 20% longer, because the chances of something happening that can create a disruption in your trip is greater. That's called probability thinking, where sometimes making the choice that doesn't seem most optimal but reduces the risk has higher value than the one that is most optimal but increases the risk, right? That's how probability thinking. So it's not, this is why tit for tat and elementary thinking just doesn't translate, because in life is not tit for tat or elementary. And so when solving problems, sometimes the long route is the best route to take if you're trying to protect the outcome of the equation, as opposed to the fastest route, which may, if it does work, it works really, really well. But when it doesn't work, it fails. So let me show you how tit for tat arguments will work. So I tell Shabisha, don't take that route or the fastest route. Shabisha would say, whatever, I took the route. And we say we argue for about 5 minutes, and then she takes the route anyway, and she gets there on time. She would assume, because of tit for tat thinking, she was right. She could be right 9 times out of 10. It's just that 10th time when she's not, it's really bad. So if you're running a business and the outcome is the most important variable, then always focusing on the fastest route is not a good way of doing business, which I'll get into a little bit later. Keep going.
Far more probability estimates are wrong on the over-optimistic side than the under-optimistic side.
Oh, is your microphone on? Hold on a second. I can't hardly hear when she's speaking. Turn it up some. DJ, what are you doing?
Far more probability estimates are wrong
There you go.
on the over-optimistic side than the under-optimistic side. You'll rarely read about an investor who aimed for 25% annual return rates who subsequently earned 40% over a long period of time. You can throw a dart at the Wall Street Journal and hit the names of lots of investors who aim for 25% per annum with each investment and end up closer to 10%.
So what that paragraph is saying, that by being over optimistic, you're going to make more mistakes because you're not using proper thinking. So arguments based upon being optimistic or being overly optimistic is not a good argument. The other day, my son had made a choice with some medication, and the doctor, and we jammed him up about making a choice on his own. So then the doctor affirmed he made the right choice. And I said, you're still wrong. He looked at me like, what? But the doctor said I was right, and I knew I was right. So first of all, you never ran any trial runs. You have no sample size information. You've never been a doctor a day of your motherfucking life. You didn't get doctor grades. So you made an assumption, and your assumption worked. But it was based upon not having information, nor did we have information. The answer lied with the information, not the assumption. Because 9 times out of 10, or there's a higher percentage chance to your false by your blind probable facts, that through your assumptions, you're going to increase your rate of bad decisions. It's better to have an accurate decision or rely upon the source to make a decision than to use your probabilistic knowledge when you have access to real knowledge, right? So sometimes, even if it works out, doesn't make you right. Sometimes when you do the right stuff, when you do something that you thought was right with improper information, and it works out, doesn't make you right. If you're playing the long game. If you're playing the long game, you'll do the exact same thing again, and guess what? You take hard losses. And those hard losses will outweigh those times you were right. Imagine if you had a big contract with a big client, and you had to fly out to that client once a month. And every time you took the fast route, got in your car, you was on time. But at one time, traffic went all bad, and you missed one of the most important meetings. Mostly the client gets pissed off and they start to deteriorate their relationship because guess what? You're not taking this shit serious. In the end, those even if you have it 2 times out of 8, those 2 is enough to get you terminated from that project. So the reality is that being right based upon probability thinking is not necessarily right. And being wrong is not necessarily wrong.
So using the example that you gave around like not running any trials, not knowing a lot of stuff, you just made a decision. You were able to look at that and say, here's a flaw in the thought process.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking about the Todd Simkin podcast where he says that's really what we don't really care about the outcome. We want to understand the thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I...
That's exactly what that is, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if that's me and I want to make a decision around medication and I want to check my thinking, then I would just simply, I mean, I guess this podcast kind of gave us the steps to follow, really. It basically kind of said, like, this is kind of what you would do. Because what I'm questioning is how to check myself in the next situation where there is, whether it be medication or anything, where there's like, am I thinking about this correctly? So that's where that's coming from.
Yeah, let's come back to the end quick because I'm going to answer that question in depth as opposed to just trying to make it a fast passing response, because I'm going to really tap into that even deeper. I want to really get into that because a lot of times when you don't know something, let's say you fake it till you bake it, and you take it on a position, you start rewarding yourself as being knowledgeable because it worked. But because your equation is flawed, it's a matter of time before you pay the real cost, right? And so, I mean, it happens in cooking all the time, right? Everybody loves my cooking. But do you know how to make an apple pie? Do you know the science of apple pie? Do you understand how the human taste buds may engage apple pie? Do you know the various issues of how the human being experiences apple pie? So when you say my apple pie is great, that is based upon that's flawed thinking to come to the idea that your apple pie is great because everybody loves your apple pie. Because even that equation of everybody loves your apple pie, maybe when people receive your apple pie, the way that you approach them in the questioning creates too much emotional energy to give you the absolute truth. So even your evaluation, otherwise, all that takes for you to be successful in business is find something that you do that everybody likes, and you be good. But anybody knows this is when you decide to sell something that supposedly everybody likes, it starts to the equation changes drastically. And a lot of times it's because we have flaws in our probability thinking. All right, let's keep rolling. I told y'all this is not, I didn't make this class for softies. This is Wolf course. Keep going.
The spy world, successful spies are very good at probabilistic thinking. High-stakes survival situations tend to make us evaluate our environment with as little bias as possible.
Mm-hmm.
For Vera Atkins in the 1940s.
I'm going to talk about that bias. To that sentence, remember bias. I'm going to thumbnail that. We'll come back to that in a minute. But then when he says to evaluate our environment with as little bias as possible, I'm going to show you how to bias. I'm going to explain to you how you build up the bias. Go ahead.
For Vera Atkins in the 1940s, it was very much a process of assigning weight to the various factors and coming up with a probabilistic assessment of who had a decent chance of success. Who spoke French, who had the confidence, who was too tied to family, who had the problem-solving capabilities. From recruitment to deployment, her development of each spy was a series of continually updated, educated estimates.
So first of all, if you master probability thinking and you were to go against a community that didn't practice probability thinking, like the Black community or poor white community or most poor Latino communities that don't really practice probability thinking, they will see you as a god and you will whoop their ass in so many strategies because it's a whole different level of thinking. When you go into a community or someplace, a lot of times what you're hearing is cultural narratives. I'm going to explain to you a little bit later how narratives are the enemy of probability thinking. narratives are the enemy of probability thinking. Now, narratives can be used to enhance probability thinking, but narratives, I'm going to show you some cold shit with narratives and probability thinking, how they're on a different side of the fence. And as we know, Black culture is heavy in narratives. And this is where, and matter of fact, the narratives that Black culture is also, some of it, I'm not sure if it's really Black culture, if it's not just also part of our poverty and us being the working class and how we survived as a folks going through slavery and Jim Crow. I mean, it's very narrative heavy. It helps us survive. It helps a lot of us. If you're going through a lot in your life, I'm sure you're using narratives right now to keep you stable. But when you have to make decisions, you can't rely upon that tool to build, especially when other people are involved. So I'm going to go somewhere else with this, but just keep going because I'm going to give you some cool examples. We keep going.
Choosing a target is another exercise in probabilistic thinking. You need to evaluate the reliability of the information you have and the networks you have set up. Intelligence is not evidence. There is no chain of command or guarantee of authenticity.
That's that phrase with it. Intelligence is not evidence. You know, so I'm in the marketing and branding industry. My number one job is to find things that are just not evident. Intelligence is not evident. Most intelligence is so abstract. You don't have, as a matter of fact, most intelligence is things unseen and unknown. Most time, intelligence is thinking between the lines. This is why a lot of intelligence is not well articulated at a barbershop, because that's an evidence-based discussion, right? Intelligence quite often is not always evidence. And so this is when you start to feel like you're working like you're thinking like a god. I promise you this shit is crazy when you see it being worked out and produced and you watch people who use probability thinking. It feels like they live in a different universe. It's a different form of thinking that it just does not exist. And I promise you, if you don't ever learn it, it's hard to scale without it. It is so fucking hard to scale without it. And you'll make such huge mistakes. In a minute, I'm going to talk about COVID and show you how probabilistic thinking and how evidence-based thinking caused so much damage in a COVID anti-COVID movement. Where if you use probabilistic thinking, you could have made total different decisions. And it almost seems like you have hindsight knowledge, like you've been through it before, because it's a way of looking at patterns. Now, second thing is this. You have to be able to evaluate the information and knowledge you have. If you just assume your knowledge is solid and you're not always updating your knowledge, because you're probably thinking is only as good as your knowledge. So you have a low level of knowledge and you use these tools of probability thinking, you just cannot produce good outcomes. But it's a way of thinking that is so crazy. And just think about this. If you had to just keep it simple, what probably could happen? How do I calculate what probably could happen? That's all you're doing. What can I predict that's going to happen? Can I predict what probably could happen or more than likely could happen, right? The person who understands how to think like that can almost be one step in front of their competition. It's like imagine playing basketball and somebody already knows every move you're going to make, but you didn't watch their tape. They don't watch every tape on you. And you're like, I'm about to hit this famous move I always hit on everybody. And they're like, stop it. Probability thinking is getting that extra step in front of everything your competition is doing, the way the world works, patterns in the universe. You understand? And there's some things you realize, I can understand these things, and these things here I cannot understand, which is fat tails. So probability are things you should be able to predict almost, because they have a kind of a guarantee. For example, you should be able to predict that, he's not going to be 8 feet tall. I can guarantee your son's not going to be 8 feet tall. You can say that, right? Because based upon the bell curve, no human being has actually been that tall. Right? I think the 7, what was it, 7? What was the 8 foot guy? The tall one, so 9 feet, you can't predict a person can't be 9 feet. So that's the maximum limit of any human beings we've ever seen is 8 foot 6 inches, right? So anything beneath that, and I think the shortest person, I can't remember what the shortest is, but between those two heights, this is pretty much the range that human beings are going to fall in. So you run safe predictions within that space, and you're pretty good. But there's certain things you cannot predict. You can't predict the impact of a nuclear war. Pandemics are unpredictable. They're fat tails. So we get into that in a minute. Keep going. We did someone?
Yep.
Okay. Wait. Let's just say there's no chain of command or guarantee of authenticity. That's pretty fucking powerful. I'm gonna come back to that one too. I'm gonna come back to that one. Some of this stuff I want to wrap up in a nice package, and I don't want to say it twice. Go ahead.
The stuff coming out of German-occupied France was at the level of grainy photographs, handwritten notes that passed through many hands on the way back to HQ, and unverifiable wireless messages sent quickly.
Keep going. This is tight.
Sometimes sporadically, and with the operator under incredible stress. When deciding what to use, Atkins had to consider the relevancy, quality, and timeliness of the information she had.
So you walk into a strange town. Your job is to find the most elite people to betray their government, to get information to get back to your government, and you're not even part of the culture, to betray their government and cause them to lose a war. Now, it ain't like you have highly verifiable sources, handwritten notes. I thought the word for being emotionally compromised. There's a word for that, like a form of duress. But you know, some kind of emotional duress. Photos are grainy. All these type of things, and yet you have to use a form of thinking to use all these weak sources of information to make the best fucking decision. Well, guess what? That's the same role you play as an entrepreneur. If you think everything will be clean cut facts, tell you what to do, how to build it, measure it perfectly, and everything's just going to work perfectly, there's a whole bunch of invisible, sloppy. Your memory and your knowledge is raggedy as those sources of information. The people around you is raggedy as those sources of information. And yet you got to be able to sift through all that stuff and find a level of accuracy to make the best possible decision to give you the highest possible outcome. That's why the shit about spies is like, it's insane if you just think about what they had. Like, just think about going to like getting off a plane right now in like some European town where ain't nobody black and figuring out who to talk to work with somebody else, be discreet so they don't catch you because you're the main person. You go away, the whole system is destroyed. Figure out who's who without being from that town. And remember the lifer versus the newbie that comes to town and he thinks he knows everything, and she circle competence, right? You have no circle competence. You're a straight newbie, and you got to make decisions that are at levels of a lifer. Can it be done? Yes, it can. This tool is probability thinking. So, okay, go ahead. Go to she also. I think she also had to make it.
She also had to make decisions based not only on what had happened, but what possibly could
happen.
Trying to prepare for every eventuality means that spies would never leave home, but they must somehow prepare for a good deal of the unexpected.
So think about this. As a spy, your whole life is based upon the unexpected. As an entrepreneur, the same thing. Those of you who think that tomorrow should go just like yesterday are not entrepreneurs, not ready to be entrepreneurs. You live every day knowing that the unexpected could just happen at any moment. And honestly, if you are a parent, anybody's a parent in here, they will tell you every day is unexpected. You go home right now, that kid is doing something unexpected. You'll get a call from school, something unexpected. If you're in a relationship, you know that loved one is about to do some shit just unexpected. So going through life expecting to be the same as yesterday is a bad form of thinking. Ain't that crazy? And that's simple. But I know a lot of you guys heard what I just said. But tomorrow, I'm going to show up tomorrow like it's going to be like this is why when I used to work in corporate America, and like say you come to somebody's desk, they be like, who moved my phone? Oh, just get on my nerves when people move my phone. You're not an entrepreneur. Stay at your job and don't think about leaving. Because entrepreneurship do this. Oh, just put my phone back. Anyway, it's part of the game. Shit happens. I don't have a visible force field on my desk. Somebody could just walk over here and say, a phone is an interesting thing, and walked away. Right? That's just how life is. Random shit happens all the time. Your job is to accept it and be prepared to adjust to it at any time as an entrepreneur, because as an entrepreneur, as a parent, or anything else in your life, that's the way life works. Most of us who are fucking stressed the fuck out is because we want life to be the way we want it to be, not accepting life for what it really is, which is a whole bunch of randomness that's always interacting, that's creating all these offsets of experiences. Go ahead.
After all, their jobs are often executed in highly volatile, dynamic environments.
They embrace the volatility and the dynamicness and the danger and all the stuff in their environment. Remember I said, a couple of weeks ago, I talked about racism. And I said, look, and when I'm on my bicycle and I'm riding my bike, when I first started riding, I used to hate the wind because I felt like I had to do twice as much to get half as far. I heard that phrase before, but that's really what it feels like. And when the wind's at your back, you think, shit, this is easy, white people. But then at some point, in order for you to get past the power of that wind, you learn to accept the wind. Matter of fact, you even learn to gamify the wind and make the wind work for you. So now when I'm riding into the wind, I'm getting my real workout on. When I'm riding with the back at my wind, I'm not really getting anything out of that. But when I'm riding into the wind, it's making me more powerful, stronger, and greater. So if a person who always ride with a tailwind races me who rides into the headwind, I'm going to smoke them all day and all night. Meaning that racism should make us better at the game than weaker. But in order for us to make us better, you got to accept it first. Embrace it. And then build strategies you can use to overcome it or make it even work in your favor. But for you to say it should not be, it's no different than the spy going in this place going, well, it should be like this, and it should, and this should, and this should, and I don't understand, and I don't like this, and this is unfair, this is my expectations. She wouldn't last a day, and she'd be dead by tomorrow. By tomorrow. Next. Sharisha, next. Oh, you take your notes? Okay. She's like, she can't read the shit. I got some shit to do.
I don't be wanting to lose the thought. Okay.
No, you're a good reader, Sheila. You're a good reader. We're a good reader.
All of these jobs were dangerous. The full scope of the threats was never completely identifiable. There were so many things that could go wrong, so many possibilities for discovery or betrayal, that it was impossible to plan for them all. The average life expectancy in France for one of Atkins' wireless operators was 6 weeks.
So you became a spy, and the chance that you lasted past 6 weeks was pretty much what it was. That's the average. Once you say I'm gonna be a spy for you, 6 weeks, I might as well go get that tombstone starting chiseling right now. Goodbye. Good luck out there. Go ahead.
Finally, the numbers suggest an asymmetry.
Matter of fact, you'll hear that word a lot, asymmetry. We won't talk about that in one class, but that word's gonna come up a lot in business as you grow. It's a very, very strong phrase. It's a power phrase. Go ahead.
In the estimation of the probability of success of each individual agent. Of the 400 agents that Atkins sent over to France, 100 were captured and killed. This is not meant to pass judgment on her skills or smarts. Probabilistic thinking can only get you in the ballpark. It doesn't guarantee 100% success.
Hear that? So that means 300 didn't make it. That's crazy great numbers. She couldn't guarantee shit because there's too many variables intersecting. But if she got 300 people to go in and make it and live out of 400 spies with the average rate of 6 weeks lifespan for a spy was fucking crazy success. But if you're liberal and you saw it on the news, she got my cousin killed. I'm gonna talk about that. Why I keep doing that. There's a reason I keep doing this. How probability thinking is always interrupted. Wait. Conclusion. Go ahead.
Successfully thinking in shades of probability means roughly identifying what matters, coming up with a sense of the odds, doing a check on our assumptions, and then making a decision.
Mm-hmm. So real quick. Understand that you're playing the odd game, and everything decision you make is always odds. this absolute knowledge of being right versus wrong, waste of time. You always play odds. Second of all, doing checks on your assumptions, always checking your assumptions. Knowing when you are making an assumption. Don't let your ego get you fucked up. Let me say this again. In the words of court, don't let your ego get you fucked up. Which, what I mean by that is that you get to the point that you make an assumption, but your ego tell you it's the truth, and you go out there and you make a decision, and the shit keep going bad because your ego keeps telling you that the shit you think is real. It's a fucking assumption. Don't have your ego get you fucked up. Keep going.
We can act with a higher level of certainty in complex, unpredictable situations. We can never know the future with exact precision. Probabilistic thinking is an extremely useful tool to evaluate how the world will most likely look so that we can effectively strategize.
That's it. Like, so when you see people in business offices who are making critical decisions with a lot of money, this is a tool they're using. When I meet very, very smart people, they're master probability thinkers. And probability thinking is a cold-blooded discipline. Like, this is the elementary exposure, but I want to kind of draw my own conclusion. Well, see this insurance company thing, and then I get into my conclusion. Go ahead.
Insurance companies.
So, by the way, before she gets started, insurance companies are number probability companies. That's all they are. Go ahead.
The most probability acute businesses in the world are insurance companies because they must be. When we think of insurance, we might think of life insurance, the probability of a policyholder dying at a certain age, or auto insurance, the probability of being in a car accident, or maybe home insurance, the probability of a tree falling on the house. With the statistics available to us, the probabilities of these things are easy to price and predict across a large enough population.
So the larger the number, the better a calculation works. The smaller the number, the harder for a calculation to work. So if the numbers relative to, so for example, if you're talking about millions, okay. So for example, in research, the one research will say to you, what's your sample size to argue a point? Because if your sample size is not large enough, then your assessment is highly possibly flawed. I'm going to get to that. I'm going to show you some techniques around that in a minute. And so the larger the number, the higher chances of your odds that you're playing will be on the higher percentage. It's the laws of large numbers. There's laws of large numbers. And so insurance companies can look at large numbers of groups' behavior, but they do cover segments because each group does have different equations. Each race, each cultural group, because of the way they interact and their practices and their cultural belief systems. They can look at a certain number and predict how many people are going to die at what age or how many car accidents will probably happen at some time. Mind you, they're playing the odds game. But based upon their prediction, 9 times out of 10, because there's times when they don't win. 9 times out of 10, they're on the winning side. So probability, a whole insurance agency, and even the stock market in Las Vegas is all based upon probability.
So what I'm hearing you say is, for instance, Hope is this size.
Mm-hmm.
And if Hope goes national, if I'm understanding you, you're saying that whatever our results are at this stage, they will likely look very different on a national stage.
Absolutely,
because
right?
this doesn't translate.
Well, I'm gonna give you all some other insights. Right now, Hope is on the S curve. So when you bring a business called our innovation business or a new business into a market, it hits an S curve. S curve is this: it drags because most people are not going to catch on right away. But when it finally takes off, when 10% of the market responds, right, it has a huge jump. Then after the huge jump, it drags again. Right, and that drag, a lot of times in that huge jump, a lot of executives jump off right here because that new drag, they get used to that leap, that leaping process, right? So right now, because Hope is teaching something new, it has to be able to weather the storm of time. Time is my greatest enemy right now. Can you beat time? Because you got to last a certain amount of time for the class to catch on and be effective. Now, what I do with Hope as a smart business move is I use that time to test ideas and strategies to see which one catches and which one doesn't. And then in hopes that it gives me a better starting point. But once I take off, I have to upgrade my insight system for the expansion of the larger group, right? I can't take the insights of the S curve at the bottom for the curve at the curve point to say that curve. Well, so we at the top of that next S, the next part of the S curve, that the insights down here is relevant to the point up here. So what hope could look like at a certain level of growth will be nothing like the way it looks now. And so I may have to be able to figure a way to protect the authenticity and the depth of the knowledge, but the size and the groups of the people, even the people who are participating in helping it to expand, it's going to change the nature and the characteristics and the possibilities and capabilities and the insights that I got from a smaller group was more of a controlled experiment. So there's some theories I'm going to try to test as we get up here. So they're rich theories, but a lot of them may just collapse because we're too large. Okay, real quick. Go past the microphone real quick. Because now we get into business strategy. So a lot of times everybody want to learn business strategy in this class. I'm like, yo, we've been priming you for business strategy this whole time, but I'm going there, which is how do you make decisions in business daily? And so that's why it's not going to be the same as in the past. Go ahead.
Excuse me, because I'm trying to process and get my question right.
No, take your time.
Is there timing? There is timing built in. Is there optionality built into the timing, or is there timing built into optionality?
Oh, in the beginning of the S
Knowing your
curve?
customer,
Yeah. I mean, like, what you'll see in .coms is they pour, venture capitalists pour a lot of money to change the speed of the S, right? The less money you have, the longer the S curve is going to take. I mean, unless things can become viable. I mean, it's really unpredictable. Like, it's a probability estimate, the S curve. It's not a guarantee, right? But it's just that what usually happens in the bell curve of a new business is that when you're new and you're innovative, for example, okay, Court doesn't have an S curve. His is totally different, right? Because although he's a new business, he's in a market that's identifiable. But let's say Court came up with a shirt that we never really seen before, but we can associate with T-shirt, but it's something different, right? It could be better material, more efficient, and everything about it. But let's say he built a T-shirt, like he got some material that no one ever seen before, but it lasts twice as long. And everybody in this room is guaranteed, oh my God, Court, you're going to blow up. He still has to go through an S curve. What can accelerate his S curve is money, right? If he gets resources, which means he can expand his attention reach faster and be more aggressive in his communication. But for most businesses, even if you open a corner store, it's the same thing. You open a cafe, right? When you first open a cafe on a block because it's a new cafe, no one sees your cafe. They walk by it every day, they don't even see it. Because their human brain is not designed to see new stuff right away. It's looking for what it's looking for. Right? Like, have you got your car and just go for a walk one day and you be like, oh, I didn't know this was here. Oh my God. That's just how your brain works, period. That's all human brains work the same way, right? So when you first open a cafe, you need 6 months to a year runway. If you don't have 6 months to a year runway money, you may have the best food, the best service, the best structure, the best business model, and you just still don't survive because your S curve, you didn't get a chance to survive the S curve.
My question is, what for sample size, what is a good number for it to be less flawed to where it could kind of be considered like
it's relative.
credible?
I'm not trying to cop out on your question. Okay. Sample size is always relative. There's an equation for sample sizes, which you can actually look that up online. How to get the right size, how to do. There's an actual Google equation for what is a proper number to know you have the proper sample size to make the best decision amongst a certain group of people. Like this shit, like y'all be thinking like folks just sitting around and they got some hookup with some Illuminati. Nah, it's just they're using forms of decision making that you just never see in the hood. If you do see it in the hood, that drug dealer is gonna be like Pablo Escobar untouched. But anyway, and I'm not encouraging anybody becoming a dope dealer. I'm just saying, probably thinking it's a cold animal. Where were we? Go ahead, keep going.
What is the probability of a Victoria's Secret model injuring her legs badly enough to end her career? 1 in 10,000, 1 in 100,000? Getting it right would mean evaluating her lifestyle, her habits, her health, her family history, and coming up with a price and a set of conditions that are good enough to provide a profit on average. It's not unlike handicapping a race at the horse tracks. You can always say yes to insuring, but the trick is to come up with the right price. And for that, we need probability.
Ooh. Did y'all get that? That shit's so cold. Like, do you know there was a black man who had his own record label, who became rich, who was poor, became rich from just running a black insurance company, life insurance company. I forgot the story. I remember the story from a little ways back because he was part of the music industry that, what was that music they used to play that was super racist? What's that music? The music, the ice cream song music. Yeah, ice cream truck music. What's it called? Right, look, do ice cream truck music. History of ice cream truck music. Josh, please don't do this. It's called, what's that music called? What's it called? What name of the music called? Huh? No. Huh? There was a genre of music in this country that, huh? Yeah, but what's the genre of that music? No, it's not Braville. It's another name for it. It's gonna come back to me. It's gonna come back to me in a second. But we went through 40 years in this country where most of the music was like kill black people, hang black people, watch black people eat watermelons and chicken. It was just this horrible music, and they played it. And when white people would go get ice cream, they would just play it in an ice cream shop. And that's when
That it was that like Appalachian music.
No, but it's a particular genre of music. And what happened was the reason ice cream trucks had that music is because when the truck decided to go to the communities, that was the music they would listen to, and it reminded them of songs. And so a lot of the early Disney movies and show like this, a lot of those songs, a lot of our nursery rhymes are based upon real racist songs, racist songs that they changed the words later on. I'll look it up later on. Well, this, huh? No. No, it's not American. No, we just stop. Yeah, but it ain't American football. Don't make me come across this table.
Bluegrass country.
Huh?
Bluegrass country.
No, not bluegrass.
That's what it's called. That's what they said. That's what Google says.
No. Okay.
It was.
You don't have me typing this up.
It's Appalachian music, derivative forms of bluegrass and country.
No, I'm gonna tell you 1 second. It's called they used to call it coon songs. It was called
Coon songs were a genre of music that presented a stereotype
but it was not called
of black
coon.
people.
It wasn't called coon songs. No. I'll look it up later on. What's this? It was a very racist ass musical music. Minstrel music. Yeah. Minstrel music. That's what it's called, minstrel. So minstrel was a music. I told you, I ain't gonna tell you my association on how I used to remember it. But anyway, minstrel was but minstrel music was an era, and the black guy who created the insurance company created a record label to kind of help us pull out of the minstrel era music. And one of the one of the top minstrel music writers were black, and he ended up committing suicide because he couldn't stand himself for the music he was creating. He was he was an Uncle Ruckus of that time. Lot of stories. And if you get, I'm gonna find this minstrel it's a 4-hour podcast on the history of minstrel music, most amazing shit ever. But it was a black dude who created his own insurance company. Black folks used to be into insurance in the probability business. Probability was a very popular form of thinking before technology and how a lot of us made strong decisions in complex situations. Probability thinking has deteriorated in the .com era. So when I say, like, look at Las Vegas, look at the investment industry, look at these. There's so many industries right now is based upon probability. It's ridiculous, and most of us don't even know what that is. And it's a form of decision making that changes your odds in the games you play. I mean, you guys are playing the game as if you're praying, you're crossing your fingers, hoping Jesus will bless you with a win. And you don't realize you're playing an odds game. And there is a calculation on how to think, but there's a way you can't give up thinking to use probability. Probability is a higher form of thinking. It's not a math. So don't think, oh, I just need to know this math equation. No, you have to know how to think. And you have to know how to assess. You have to know how to ask questions. You have to know how to explore. You have to have insights. You have to turn your ego to fuck. Ego is another enemy of probability thinking. But we're getting to this one. Keep going. Oh, so let me ask you a question. All right, here's one for y'all. Everybody, I need you to write down your answer or type it on your phone or whatever. There's a young lady named Linda. Linda goes to Cal Berkeley. During the summer, Linda worked for the Nature Conservancy. Linda also marched in the George Floyd movement. Linda's been an activist most of her life. She's also stood for Me Too principles and social justice. Hold on a second, let me pull my phone. Make sure I cover all the facts of Linda. 1 second. I'm gonna jump around and grab the me alert. What the hell? Okay. 1 second. Got too many emails. Hold on a second. Okay, here we go. Okay, so what's the chances? Which one would Linda be? A bank manager or the spokesperson for the Animal Liberation Front? Write down your answer. So I give you a profile. Cal Berkeley, Nature Conservancy, which deals with the wilderness, the wild, participated in social justice movements, including Me Too and racism. Would she more likely be Animal Liberation Movement or the bank? I'll give you all only 30 seconds because goddamn, make the decision. This so somebody's in there going, but wait a minute. Boy, shut up. Josh, you ain't teaching shit, so shut up. So anybody? All right, so how many people chose the bank? And how many people chose the Animal Liberation Movement? Okay, everybody's wrong. You know why you're wrong? Because the enemy of this is not this class problem. This is not your human problem. The enemy of probability thinking is narratives. Which is again, the enemy of probability thinking is narratives. The reason many of y'all never use probability thinking because you think in narratives. The chances of Linda being a manager of a bank, if you do the numbers of statistics and percentage, is extremely low because there's very few managers of banks. And the chances of her being the head of the liberation movement is even slimmer. So if you use probability thinking, you would say neither. Those are horrible odds. If you were in business, that's how you would make that decision. Where you get caught in business fucking up is you would hear stories and narratives about the customer, about what's going on, about the market, about the suppliers, about your past, about who you think you are, about your friends and family, and you will equate that into your formula to make a decision, and you walk away from the facts that's right in front of you. You won't be able to see the invisible facts because the narratives are running too damn loud in your head. This is why your group you hang around are sharing narratives with you. Yo, Court, you wearing those Yeezys? What is Yeezys? That's a narrative. Oh man, I just got these because I didn't want to pay the money. Narrative. So now he's filling his brain up with so many flawed narratives. It's time to make a business decision. He can't separate them. Now I've always been a hard gangster ass dude. That's nothing but a fucking narrative. Everybody you ever seen act hard is only hard as you look at them. When they go in the real world, they've been neutralized. Everybody's a boss. There's very few. Like if you look at these things we call ourselves, our personas, they're narratives that are running who we think we are. Now, don't get me wrong. This is not an anti-narrative conversation. The opposite of a good idea is a good idea. Narratives are good when you have to help yourself kind of sustain, keep yourself going, focus, whatever. But when it comes time to make the decision, you got to put the narratives down and read the situation, or your narrative has to be consistent with the problems that are facing you, like you see in law. And your narratives have to be coherent. You know why most of your narratives are not consistent and coherent? Because you talk to other people who are damaged with the same narratives. In order for your narratives to be valuable in your decision making, you have to have all your narratives tested by people who do not share your narratives. When you go find like-minded people, you become dumber. If you surround yourself by just nothing but like-minded, we all pro-black. We make horrible decisions. We just decreased our value. You got to be able to run your narrative out. So when me and Court came to Seattle with us for, years. He was like 21, I was 23, whatever, something like that. And we went out there a little ways back, and we sounded like, hey, we talk to everybody. But we don't talk to everybody just to say, hey, man, you like Hondas? Oh, okay, cool. Hey, you like Hondas? Hey, cool. Like your shoes, girl. You fly. Hey. I can't wait to test one of my narratives. Hey, here's one of my narratives. What do you think? You ever see rich people, powerful people do that all the time? If you meet a powerful person, you might be the subject of a narrative test. They walk up to you and say, hey, what do you think about what's happening over here? And then they're going to say, well, what about this? What about that? I didn't see that before. They just updated their narratives to align with truths to make better probable decisions. But quite often, we have poisoned narrative. Black people was poisoned by Tuskegee. Flawed narrative. Incomplete, a lot of probabilities based in there. A lot of things are just totally irrelevant to the point. But the negative narrative is so rich, and the reason it feels so rich because you're talking to the same people over and over and over again. Then guess what catches a narrative, make a narrative go but while fucking girls going wild crazy? Is when a narrative hits social media. And it becomes popular on social media. Now it's a high level fact. And guess what? You tripping because everybody believes that shit. It's the most popular narrative. And what you don't realize if you go back to the podcast you did not listen to because some of y'all was fake ass busy, the narrative, the podcast will highlight this thing called cryptomnesiac, which is you hear somebody echo a point and you'll forget the person who echoed the point and you'll digest the point in your brain like it's your own. That's called cryptomnesiac. And so what happened is that you will hear these narratives and these talking points from politicians, and all you're doing is arguing the group's talking points, thinking you're extremely rational because you can argue those points better than anybody else. When actually, when it comes time to do business, you'll find you're actually naked and you're full of ignorance because you never got a chance to test your narrative. Or you run around like, we always grew up together and she sees me and I see her. We're just alike. We're frenzies. Like when I'm acting crazy, she understands. She's acting crazy. I understand. I love her. Josh. That's how Josh talks to everybody. Anyway, the point is this, right? And so when they do that, you don't realize, Josh, you think I'm coming for you. I'm coming for you. But the point is this, and so what you don't realize is that you are actually building friends on comfortable narratives, but those same comfortable narratives are your walls that's keeping you from going where you want to go. Your defensiveness of your right, your anger and your venomous, your tongue of venom when somebody challenges you. locks in your narrative that poisons your probability that's inconsistent. But in your brain, you think your narrative is truthful, so you think it's perfectly aligned with your probability, but it only compromises your probability. And it means that you went from 40% success to 5% success. Ain't that some cold shit? Narratives is the enemy of thinking, probability thinking. If you play in the odds game, it's time to turn off narratives. I got some couple more points. Hold on a second. Now, you know, if you ever go to a new company, here's a little trick. If you have a job, or you at a new company, or you starting a business and you're working with experts, or you starting a business and you learn from other people in the industry, and you just use that to mature into the industry. Do not become drunk with the internal narratives. You work in a new company, everybody tell you this. You know, at PG&E we did this. This is what we stand for. This is where we came from. This is this is the history. This is what we stand. This is what the founders believe in. This is how we show up every day. This is how we deliver. This is all narratives. Where you get the probability facts is okay, but what do customers say? What happens is a lot of times, this is why a lot of fucking photographers and artists like Josh don't go that far. Because they get caught up in the internal narrative of this camera and the Leica and the this here. Okay, tell me the science of customer enjoyment of photography. If you can't tell me about why the customer is buying the photography, then you're going to suck in this business. We are narrative drunk. Go ahead.
Man, I've been listening to so much game, but I just want to just quickly talk about the Vegas thing and like a simple explanation of probability thinking, and everything you said about narratives and groups and friends is fucking incredible. And you think about Las Vegas. Las Vegas is designed to take your money. The rhythm of Las Vegas, the odds, everything is designed to take your money. So humans are already conditioned damn near to lose. So
yes.
That's why games are in groups, because once the thinking starts taking over, and then the conditioning to lose starts taking over, and everybody just gets comfortable losing. If you use probability thinking in those situations, like at the crap table in Vegas or anytime there's group, if you're playing the probability game, you'll become the enemy of the staff and the people betting. Yep. Because you're going against all the grains, the normalities, what typically happens, what everybody's supposed to do, and eventually everybody's giving you the side eye because you're playing the probability game and they're playing the tribal game, like it was talked about in the podcast. And sometimes tribal games is better than winning money. Being tribally accepted is better than winning in some cases. So it's a cold experiment to do. I don't suggest it, but I'm saying it basically does everything you talked about in real time.
I'm not. Yeah, that's perfect. That's a perfect example. Las Vegas. The reason many of us lose in Las Vegas and we go there and give up our money because we're locked into the narratives. Where a professional gambler, they're literally playing probability. And probability means that they need to know the facts of what they're up against, and then how to think and how to approach it, how to play it to best win the game. Where many of us fuck up is we walk in there thinking that we could play this game of, we can walk in there with some kind of narrative. I need this money, or I believe I can win. I felt last night God talked to me. Stop it. These are narratives. You're running in your brain. Stay to the probability, and you'll even know when to quit the game and when to walk away from the game. You can't walk away from the game and be a winner, a professional winner, because often what destroys a lot of gamblers is they fall into a narrative while they're gambling and they become losers. Right? Because in the end, I know I can win my money back. I'm just gonna play one more time. Is that probability or is that narrative? Like literally, if you want to change your odds on winning in this life, this does not guarantee you won't lose. You will change. You will learn to think through probability, not narratives. let's go to the next slide. No, it says, so earlier it talked about there is no guarantee. Probability is not to predict problems, but to understand them better. Let me say this again. And process that. Is not to predict your problems, to understand them better. So you don't gain the ability to predict, but you get a whole different depth of understanding if you're using probability thinking. Hold on a second, let me make sure, because I got different notes, different effects. Mashama keep texting me. If he texts me one more time. So NASA can predict within 7 years, if it lets a satellite take off, it can predict that within 7 years it will actually reach Mercury with absolute accuracy. And the reason it can predict that is because the effects of motion is highly predictable. It's a mathematical equation. But probability is not like traditional science or traditional science. Probability is interrupted by humans' emotions and human interaction, which means randomness and volatility. So when you're using probability, the reason it can never predict accurately, because once human beings interact with something or have emotional connection to something, it can drastically change the outcome, even with the best equation or prediction. This is how companies get it wrong who have excellent processing system, because all it takes is one emotion. The stock market is vulnerable to an emotional shift. If America loses faith in something, you watch the numbers plummet so fast it'll make your head spin, and watch how many businesses will close overnight just because human beings change their emotions. Also, human beings break shit. We change our patterns. We do shit that's just inconsistent. So when you're trying to predict how to move amongst other human beings, probability thinking changes the odds, but it's not a science of accuracy, because Mercury, the shuttle that's going to Mercury doesn't care about human interaction. But probability is based upon sciences that do care about human interaction. Right? Let's make sure I cover everything. Okay, I'm good. Let's go to this one. Next slide. So I don't know if you guys remember. This is cold. Now stick with me here. Now I'm gonna give you all a little deeper science. I don't think you guys remember, and thinkers saw this as a crime. And very few thinkers, I think you guys got exposed to. But this is one of the biggest crimes of COVID. The White House, when COVID first started, they said 100 to 200,000 people in the United States probably would catch COVID the first year. As you guys know, that number didn't even, I think it went past that number. I think it was almost 500 something, right? 1,000 people would die from COVID. They said over 100 to 200,000 people would die from COVID in the United States. And I think it was somewhere close to 500,000. They were wrong for giving you that number. Everybody who gave you a prediction number was making shit up. Let me say this again. There is no equation for that in probability. There is no, I'm going to show you why. There is absolutely no equation for predicting how many people catch COVID. So first rule. Here's the first rule. Rule of a pandemic. If 1,000 people die from a particular disease, it is okay to call it a pandemic. Anything under 1,000, we don't give a fuck about it. But if 1,000 people die, now, once 1,000 people die, if you predict 2 million and only 100,000 people die, you were still right. If you say possibly, if you said, not predict, excuse me, wrong word. If you say possibly 2 million people can die and you designed your decision for 2 million people and only 100,000 people died, your decision was perfect. Because a pandemic is what we call a fat tail, going back to last week. Fat tails are numbers that can peak at levels we don't even understand. Pandemics and nuclear weapons are the number 2 highest fat tails in human existence right now. Meaning, if a pandemic hit, we don't know what the potential numbers could be. So if everybody panics and go into safety mode and only 100,000 die, you were not a fool. For the simple fact that because it's a pandemic, your intuition cannot predict the possible full potentials of a pandemic. Because what a pandemic is not 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's 1 times 2, 2 times 2 times 2, 4 times 4. It's exponential growth. So it can grow so fast and so quick. The amount of people who lived, we don't know if they did or did not do masks, if they did not or did use vaccines, what that number actually could have been in the end results. Human intervention created the stop of an invisible number. All this information I'm sharing with you is absolutely invisible. But the reason you can't run an actual number is because, one, we didn't know the rate of infection. Now, rate of infection is very, very difficult for multiple reasons. Rate of infection changes per culture. So for example, in Europe, it might be 1 to 1. It might be, say, in Asia, 1 to 0.05. It might be in Africa, 1 to 1.5. In the black community, it might be 1 to 3. Meaning every one person can infect 3. So when somebody does an estimate, they would have to have such a large sample size of the speed or rate of infection to even come close to a prediction. But even in that, individuals within that group can change the whole fucking equation. So if I got COVID and I go to a party and tell everybody come through and 100 people show up and I'm like, let's let this shit off, and I hit you and just start spreading really, really fast, I'm actually 1 to 100 in a group that's 1 to 0.3. Let me just real quick. So, in theory, you got to know what in your business life and in your personal life and in the world are fat tails, which are absolutely unpredictable, and what are bell curves, which are within your predictability. So when you see a fat tail show up in your life, you prepare for the possibilities of the extreme to the minimum because you don't know what the fuck it is. And there's no equation that can help you solve it. Have y'all even thought about that shit before? Like, you know averages, but there's hella shit you don't know.
It's not enough variables. Like, you don't have enough variables that you can feel, right? That you can answer the question, the ultimate fact.
Of a pandemic, like the fat tail, you can get closer on fat tail if we had a rigorous, aggressive testing system that said when COVID first hit, hey, every American, send your test in. We're gonna have recording. Like if you had to go hard in the paint, right? And then you have to watch that over numerous tests and say, oh shit, this is the rate of spread, and here are the hot spots. Here are the key members we probably need to isolate because they're going fucking butt shit crazy, right? So there was a disease that came out of Europe in the 12 or 1300s. I can't remember. Damn. And this disease, it wiped out large groups of like cultures that you would never see. It just killed them. And they wiped it out through commerce. So as a ship, they would sell and ship products to you, but on that ship, the products or the people would have this particular disease. That disease lasts for 300 years in Europe. I can't remember the fucking name. 300 years, it lasted for 300 years. Well, the way the Ottomans avoided catching the disease, they had a rule that said this: if you came to our town on a ship and we thought you might have a disease, turn that ship around. I'm good. Number two, now mind you, you can say, but what's the chances that happen? You can't calculate that. Two, they also had a rule that once you showed up, you had to be quarantined for 40 days. And they sense anything within those 40 days, put that motherfucker back on the ship and get him the fuck up out of here. That's the reason their group avoided the disease that killed so many people in Europe, because when Europe was pushing the disease through commerce, creating a pandemic through commerce, they were able to protect it because they came with a system that says, we don't know what this is. We don't know what the possibility is. There is no equations. This is a fat tail. So we can't even say the average. You can't say, well, if America catches a pandemic, this could happen. Even a virus that can start off soft, that kills 1,000 people, can mutate through interaction with other people in other bodies, become a stronger version of virus, and then grow to kill 1 billion people. So the fact of the matter, and also here's the other equation too. Human beings today are closer than we ever was ever before. Before, if we lived in a small town, I'm not going to see him in LA no time soon. The amount of distance we covered in a day was a certain amount of feet, right? We didn't go that far. Now we're more, like now, Las Vegas will have people from 200 countries land in Las Vegas and then go back home to their residence, which can spread it that fast. So that's a huge fucking fat tail that can explode tomorrow. The reason probability thinking says, I know what I feel. Your tuition tells you, oh, this ain't that serious. Ain't nobody sick around me, right? That's normal, what the human brain would do. That's narratives. Probability says, what is the math of this possibility? Remember when it happened, I kept telling you guys, I'm watching the math. If the math tell me I need to panic, I'm going to panic. I don't think you guys remember when I was in class during that time. I kept saying, watch the math, because you can't feel it through tuition. Your intuition is telling you, oh, I see, I don't see, I don't know nobody, I do know somebody. Oh, I know hell of you to die, right? All of those assumptions has nothing to do with the facts. So when somebody comes on television and tells you 200,000 people can possibly die, 100,000 people, 300,000 people die, they were all fucking wrong. And the same person said, ain't nobody dying from this, they were just as wrong. Both sides was extremely wrong for trying to make any type of estimate that was not even fucking close to being possible. If you understand probability thinking, you realize I can't listen to news because y'all both trash. I couldn't listen to Republicans, I couldn't listen to Democrats, because neither one of y'all fucking know. You're still learning something new. And so you have to use probability thinking to process it. So let me show you another example of probability thinking. Probability thinking says, they said that if you wear a mask, there's a 50% chance you reduce 50% chance of catching the virus, correct? Or spreading the virus. What if two of us wear a mask? The percentage just went out to 2.5%. 3, if we all wore masks during the height of COVID, we decreased the viral load, meaning that you have to hit a certain threshold for the virus to be effective. So even if we wore a mask, even if the virus was getting out, if the percentage of the virus we actually was exposed to threshold was low enough, we still were slowing down the contraction of the disease. So when I was outside, based upon the numbers, I had nothing to worry about. So I'm riding my bike, I ain't got no fucking mask, right? I'm around my family, good, I'm on a mask. If I came to a crowd of people during COVID, I was masking up because I'm playing a different odd game. You see where I'm going with this? This is like, you gotta like go beyond. Now, down there it says cost-benefit analysis. Let me show you another cold-blooded trick. You go to a contractor. You say, how much to work on my house? He's gonna make an assumption based upon variables he doesn't know. I promise you, and a lack of expertise, because he doesn't know all things. Whatever number he comes up with is just a guess. He ain't got nothing for you. Because the laws of probability says that in order for you to give you that number, the level of equation of what range he would give you will be a cold-blooded, like it's a level of thought he's not prepared to go to. The level of expertise is required. So when most people do cost-benefit analysis, and the reason that most of the time cost-benefit analysis is so far off is because there's a lot of assumptions that are made in cost-benefit analysis. There's a lack of understanding the actual facts. There's a lot of narratives running behind your mind. Oh, I did this before. I know how this works. I can get this done. I done it before. I did it on this house, this house, this house. What do I got to do with my house? So that's why when most people give you a cost-benefit analysis or estimate on a large project, the estimate is almost 99% of the time wrong, because they're not doing the proper analysis of probabilities and being able to have a fair conversation with you to give you an accurate understanding of what you're about to be exposed to. So as a person hiring somebody, you have to know as soon as you hire somebody to do a large project for you, you got to perform your own cost analysis, otherwise, cost-benefit analysis. Otherwise, you will more likely set your expectations around narratives and find yourself losing everything you have. Probability is the coldest game you're going to ever learn when it comes to making decisions. It's going to be the coldest game. Like, you're going to move in a world totally different. Totally. Anybody that's high up in the stock market game, that's how they talk, through probability. If you ask somebody who's high in probability thinking, what do you think about this? Their response is not going to be, they'll be like, well, it depends. Which is, there's so many variables here I got to take in consideration in my probability calculation. I just can't assume that it's just A and B. And I don't care about my past, my experience, my reputation, who I know, what I've done before, who I'm cool with, what my expertise and skill is. Probability says that has no variable on the actual outcome. Josh, my ankle. Next point I'm gonna make, this is still probability, redundancy. I'm gonna give you one that you can't use right now, but first thing is first. This is important. Redundancy. Rule number one. If you ever expand your, this is store this one for later as you grow. When you build a business, make sure you build it with modularity. Modularity means that if part of your business falls, your whole business never falls. Modularity. So module, larity. Look here. Don't be looking at me with your shaking your head. I got your words for you. So modularity is this issue of what happens a lot of times when you build something. We build things too much as a solid whole. Remember, there's companies right now that we hear about companies been lasting 20 plus years. They built modularity. Meaning that if they take a hit for whatever reason, anything from social hit to economic hit, you could never take my business down. My mentor, I went with him a long time ago. This is when he was worth $5 million. And he said, this is a hood dude that was on crack, saw his daughter, and said, I'll never do crack another day of his life. And 20 years later, he's worth $5 million and growing and had more property than a little bit. And he had multiple banks. So I said, why do you have so many bank accounts? He said, oh, because if you hit me, I got options and choices. If I'm in one bank, you can take me down. He learned to spread his money in modularity. Everything he did, so if you hit him hard, you got a portion of me. You took a chunk. But remember, back in probability thinking, you play, but never take a risk to the point of actually getting kicked out the game. Huh? Yeah, so when you think about building business with modularity, you build businesses where you start to branch your business into different services that if that service takes a hit, you have other sources of income coming into the business. If you put, it's like, we'll give you an example, opposite. You put all your eggs into one big client. Say you get a big client call you up and say, hey, Shakita, I'm going to pay you, I'm going to hire you. I know this is what you do for business. You train for a living, right? So she has all these groups and classes, right? Shakita has all these groups and classes. So then Shakita gets a phone call from Kaiser and he's like, yo, we'll pay you $5 million a year. What? And she starts to shut down. She stops growing this part of the business. She shifts all of her energy towards serving a $5 million a year client. And the client decides, we don't do that no more. She has no modularity. That means she's out the game. But if she, with that $5 million growth, if she built smart, says that if this business fall, I can let go all these people because I already designed that. I already designed, or I can lose this cost. I also save a certain amount of money that can give me that two month runway to bring my business back down to the point where it can be running by this part of the business. That means you hurt me, you take away some of, but I'm still in the game. I'm just not as big as I used to be. But if you pour all your money into one client and all her energy, all of her hiring, she starts spending the money as it's coming in, she has no modularity. So when she takes a hit, she gone. So that's one thing. The second thing is this. Do not build a business with the minimal tolerance that you can get away with. Always build a business with redundancy. Redundancy is how you can actually handle the impacts of randomness and volatility. So if your business takes a hit, you have a second backup support system. Too many of us build businesses with minimal like connections that you can get away with. So for example, you ain't got no insurance. If you do, you got a really weak version of insurance. You ain't got no savings. You ain't got no backup options. You have one source of income. You have only 2 clients. you don't anything that you absolutely need to use every day. You only have one of, or and you might pour a hell of money into it, but you only have one of them. If that goes out, you ain't got no backup choices. It doesn't mean that you have to have another one, but you don't even have somebody go, hey, my building got shut down tomorrow, but I have already built a relationship, so if I get shut down, I can go over here for a couple of days while this gets fixed. Right? You just built your whole business on this very thin line, base to base to base connection, where if one of those things break, you got the game. You got the fucking game. You cannot. Yeah, if you're in the technician stage, so what she said was online. If you're in the technician stage, sometimes you're so busy doing the work, you don't get a chance to audit your volatility, your redundancy, your modularity. You don't get a chance to analyze any of that shit. What you're doing is you're just so busy doing the work. Like you in the business and you're making cakes. And you got one oven, and you got one big old, one of those big old stirring things. I don't know what they call it. I don't bake shit. I don't think I bake is toast. I throw it in the oven. And so, but the thing is that, you don't have those big old stirring things. You only have one. You don't even have a relationship with a kitchen. You can go to the mall and be like, yo, if my business breaks down, I can call this kitchen. I'm up the next day. I keep going. So you don't have redundancy, and you don't have any modularity. You're just waiting for a change of things to happen. This is all probability thinking. So if I'm running a business, I'm going back to the wolf. How do I build a business that's anti-fragile? And the two key things you want to focus on out the gate is redundancy and modularity. Meaning that you can't take me out the game easy. If all you have to do is hit this one building and I'm out the game, that should be, you should go to sleep at night, wake up the next morning, all you think about is how can you secure that? Like, okay, when I first started 510 Media, the first 5 years, I was running with no redundancy. Well, very little redundancy. As soon as I got my first big check, so I got a check for, I think, $24,000. That was my first big check I ever got, $24,000 for one job. First thing I did is I went and paid off my credit. I needed that. That's some redundancy there, right? Then I made sure I got all of my insurances covered. Hey, we got business insurance, liability insurance, this insurance, that insurance, this insurance. Then I went and looked at my business structure. Okay, I had a liability. I had a limited liability. Okay, we need to go to sole partnership. It's a partnership LLC. But I forgot what they call it. But it's a partnership LLC, which allowed me to have another level of liability for taxes. I mean, I do redundancy for taxes, right? When I created my nonprofit, first I was just like, let me help stuff in the community. Wait a minute, nonprofit is a form of redundancy. It's a layer of a module. It's a certain module to protect my business, right? I started building all these smart structures and systems, and I'm always still building. So as I'm growing, I'm not growing to spend. My first move when I grow is my first move before I start buying anything fancy, how do I create redundancy? How do I create modularity, right? I bought a 510 Media van. If I lost my car tomorrow, I got a company van. And I paid off. I took 20 grand and said, they're selling the van for $24,000. I'll give you 20 grand right now. There's 20 grand on the table. Get that truck. You can have it, sir. I ain't gonna make no profit. Whatever, man. Cut the narratives loose. Give me the truck, right? And so, Now my truck sits around on my neighborhood or in my office. It has 7,000 miles. I've had it since 2018. Ain't got no miles on it. But it's there, and it needs to stay there, right? The other day, my son came to the house. He's like, why do you have a computer and laptop? It's redundancy, son. This computer break down, I got to keep going. I can't let the computer break down. I'm like, I gotta go. Apple ain't open tonight. Oh my God, who got an Apple computer? I gotta see how I can get to the cloud service. Why is anything on a hard drive? Right? I'm building structure. When we had a big client, when we had one of our first big clients was the marijuana industry. This was way back in the days. And I was like, I don't like this. Why not? We got one big client. If we don't diversify our clients, I'm vulnerable to this one person just changing their attitude. Are you fucking serious? Could you spread this shit? And if you ever sat in my meetings, I'm always talking about, hey, expand our customers. Modularity and redundancy. It's how you run a business. You don't run a business to raise your status. You run a business to stay in the game, and you stay in the game, you can build enough money to change your status. But if you start taking that profit and treating it as a profit and don't see it as the first thing you have to do is reinforce how's your health care? What if you pre-diabetic but you don't know because you ain't been to the fucking doctor, and now you go diabetic and now you get shut the fuck down? Like what if your child gets sick? You get shut the fuck, you down, you done. Business is over. Game over. Like, investing in, this is probability thinking at its best, is that we don't move in the market just for profit. We're moving in the market also to stay alive. In order to stay alive, you have to think different because you're playing the odds game. You're not playing the guarantee. There's no guarantee. And the reason you get fucked over because you get caught in narratives. You're telling yourself in your head like, oh, my customers love me. I've been doing business for years. This is the best business. I'm better than all my competition. Narrative. And I promise you, if we go through those narratives, all of them are false. But those narratives make you feel good when you show up in the morning, but it doesn't sustain your position in business. Is this shit cold or what? Like, this is why we're not scaling as a people. We're building these businesses and we're falling apart because we're building our business based upon narratives. We don't understand probability thinking, and so we're not even staying in the game long enough to become a franchise or a motherfucking McDonald's. My neighbor, by the way, so this dude, he called my neighbor, saw him in my old building. He's like, yeah, Nana, come by and see my car. So okay, he said, yeah, I got this Porsche. Motherfucker does 0 to 60 in 2.4 seconds, and that's an engine. I said, what? He said, yeah, I had a custom built. Just got here 7 months ago. So I'll go back to his car, carbon hood, carbon roof, carbon aerodynamic, and it's an SUV, 2.4 second Porsche. The one started with an M. I don't know Porsches like that. So I said, man, this is nice. How much is your Porsche? About 100 and something? He said, no, it's 250. Well, I had to cover my chest. I felt violated. Oh my God. $250,000? He said, yeah. He said, but I leases it. I said, wait. Okay, man, hold on, man. I ain't never really asked you this because, men, we don't really ask a lot of questions. If any of y'all got a man, a boyfriend, or a male friend that you're real close with, you ask him, hey, he'll say, hey, I saw Lisa the other day. You go, how's she doing? You're like, oh, I don't know. What's she doing with herself right now? I don't know. Men just have a horrible time sometimes asking those deeper questions. That's just a man flaw, right? But anyway, so I said, hey, brother, let me ask you a question, man. What did you do for a living? Oh, I own a venture capitalist firm that's worth $300 million. Black dude. He's like, yo, you looking for investment? You need some support or anything like this? Nah, man. Let's sit down and have a conversation. I don't need a goddamn dime of your money because he's a master probability thinker. And I'm teaching you theory. He's a hardcore, high level. I'm a low level practitioner. I mean, I use probability all the time. He stakes $300 million. He's a high stake probability thinker. I want to sit down and see what's the translation of the level of probability that I'm using at this stage based upon $300 million stage. You see where I'm going with this? So what I'm saying to you guys is that you don't see probability in none of our entertainment. Whether you watch ESPN, BET, documentaries, movies, shows on wild animals running around, and then the narrator's telling you what the animal's thinking, and be like, how you know what they're thinking? Where the fuck you come from? And he's thinking, he hasn't eaten all day, and he's thinking, maybe the sheep gonna outrun me. So he goes over here to think about how he can catch them. Would you shut the fuck up? With your old, and you'll find that the reason I want to bring up the $100,000 to $200,000, there are a lot of professionals who are also falsifying the way to think. Over 200,000 people could possibly catch COVID. Why are you telling people that false information? What you did was, this was why it was so criminal. They poisoned your ability to make the right decisions. If COVID had hit 10 million and you were victimized by that, that government was responsible for saying 200,000. Because the government can't give you a number. They should have said it could potentially be 2 or 3 million. It could be 20 million. It could be 300 million. We don't really know. A pandemic is a fat tail, and we should always prepare for it because it can go from 1,000 to 10 to a billion overnight, and we don't know what that is. anytime somebody try to get in the middle, start giving you numbers and say scientists say, scientist says, this is where the bullshit happened. And this is why the World Bank, okay, so when Trump said fuck the World Health Center, he was right. They wasn't using probability thinking. I know, and I fucking hate, Trump is right more than y'all realize, and I hate lining with his ass. But also Trump has to play probability thinking to be at his level. Otherwise, he'd have been like, what's his name, who spent his dad's money like that fast and went broke. Carnegie's son went broke. Hughes went broke because they don't understand the probability thinking to stay survive. When you have that kind of money, Trump has went broke and made money and broke and made money because he understands probability thinking. And so a lot of decisions he made, probability thinking is not going to align with tribes. And so at the end of the day, as much as I don't care for Trump, as far as his narcissism, some of his decisions were solid if you understand probability thinking. So when he said, I fuck the world trade and CDC shut the fuck up, he was right. And CDC just came out and said, yeah, we fucked up. And they act like, well, how are you supposed to know? That's hindsight. How are you supposed to know? Because you could have used equations that people use all the fucking time in this real world. Matter of fact, watch this. Remember they lied to your ass and told you the reason they told you not to wear a mask was they lied to you on purpose because they were scared that the medical industry would not have enough masks? That's what they told you, right? So they purposely lied to you. But they also falsely assumed, do you understand that they were told human beings, we don't have enough masks for you, you're going to have to figure it out. Do you know that a coffee filter makes a good mask? Do you know that people have shit at the house? They could have figured out how to make their own mask and decrease the numbers of COVID, but instead they was over-controlling and over-communicating? Huh? It's crazy how, and I'm not saying everything CDC did was right or versus wrong, but you can see how people can be like, what the hell are you doing? And all you thinking about is, but the CDC is a good group of people. Probably, once you understand probability thinking, you just saw a lot of mistakes that were happening. I can go on for a long time, show you all kind of decisions that were being made during COVID that it wasn't proper healthy thinking. It was more or less human beings using their intuition and their emotions and their feelings and their thoughts and emotional reasoning, but they didn't know they were doing it because it was hidden behind all these hidden principles. Is that some cool shit? One more. Survivor bias. You ever been to one of these discussions? They go, you know, I met Steve Jobs and this worked for him. And then I met this other billionaire and this worked for him. This other billionaire told me this is a good idea. It's called survivor bias. What you don't know about Steve Jobs is this. And let me read what survivor bias is. Survivor bias is this type of sample selection bias that occurs when an individual mistakes a visible successful subgroup as an entire group. In other words, survivorship bias occurs when an individual only considers the survivor observation without considering those data points that didn't survive in the event. That's a trick word. You consider the information without considering the data points that didn't survive in the event, which means Steve Jobs made more bad decisions than good decisions. And he just happened to make, on his bigger decisions, he made more good decisions on his big decisions. The big decisions that really mattered, most of those came out well. But for the most part, he made more bad decisions. But what we do through survivor bias, we start to worship them in hindsight as if all we need to do is follow their methodologies and we'll become them, which is nothing but a bias called survivor bias. Which means you can literally follow if Steve Jobs was a ghost and he spoke in your ear every fucking day and you did everything he said, you're still going to have a 50 to 60% failure rate. He just may change your odds to 40% as opposed to 5% of this because some of you guys got fucked up friends. Ain't that some cool shit?
It's like a constant reminder that top line success is hits and misses. Like I feel like I say that to myself every day because this bias of like the right decisions is how we got to the success is really hard to break. It's really hard.
There's no right and wrong. That right and wrong argument is you're shrinking yourself to elementary thinking. This level of thinking I'm showing you guys right now is saying, let go of all that right and wrong. All that attitude you give all the years, like, I'm right. You were dumbifying yourself for playing the game in this bigger world. when you decide you want to expand, you got to learn the probability game, and you got to learn to see what your assumption game is all about. Now, can you do that at all times? No, you don't. You better not, because you'll go crazy. It's when you're making critical decisions in your life, it's time to turn on a different form of thinking. If you're playing dominoes with your partners and going to a basketball court, or you're going to have dinner with your girlfriends, you just go have fun. Now, once you learn probability thinking, I promise you, it will start to contaminate a lot of your simple decisions you're making every day, because you start processing them different. But you can go out and have a wild, crazy, sexual, alcohol drinking life and still practice probability thinking. It's not a moral call. What it is understanding how actual things work in this world, and because of randomness, truth ain't always truth and wrong ain't always wrong. That's some cold shit. I mean, think about this. The whole Liberal Party is based upon this whole idea of good versus bad, right versus wrong. The whole social justice movement, good versus bad, right versus wrong. That's such surface level analysis of something that's so much complex, so much more complex. Once you get into probability thinking, you realize, hey, okay, give you an example of probability. Here's another probability thought. So, Roy Sutherland, now watch this. This is a cool game. Roy Sutherland was saying, I don't understand why Spotify lets you pay one single fee for free music. Why don't they say pay the same price, but for that price you have access to 500 albums, or 500 albums a month you can have access to, because then you would value the music you're playing because you feel like you paid you, and then also you can equate the value of your $20. So you would say, well, 500 albums would cost me $5,000. I'm getting $5,000 worth of music for $20 a month. Oh, who wouldn't take that? So that's a good idea, right? It sounds like a good motivator to create scarcity in your purchasing and say, wow, and it helps you equate value, because if you tell somebody, hey, here's $90, get unlimited, unlimited has no equated value to the brain. You can't put the word price on limited. If I say, Shakina, based on all the music you like, what's the value of that? Shakina be like, no, I don't, fuck. If I even try to do the equation, as she's writing down all the songs and albums she likes, she may discover that there's other music that she hadn't heard that she likes that should be in her genre. So I don't want that equation. That's just kind of a too subjective type of equation. So that sounds like a good idea. But then the psychologist said, but based upon behavior science, if you tell a human being that you get unlimited, we have more emotional charge. So the opposite of a good idea was another good idea. So even two goods could be opposites. You get what I'm going through? Like you guys are so priding yourself on right versus wrong. Your right could be absolutely wrong long term, but at the moment it's absolutely right. That's why I can give you the same answer to two different scenarios that seem like they're contradictory, and you'll say, none of you contradicting yourself. If without context and without probability thinking, you can't translate what I'm thinking. So when you're sitting as a poor black person watching white folks and government make decisions, or corporations make decisions, and you're like, this shit is stupid, it's inconsistent, they don't make no sense, and if it was me, I would do this, right? What you don't realize is you can't see the causation of the probability that's driving the decision making, so it seems like contradiction to you, but if you were to actually look at the numbers and all the equations, you realize, brilliant fucking decisions. Huh? Yeah, I remember that. I never saw that. But I remember the movie. I just never saw it. Go ahead.
I have a question about startups who fail.
Mm-hmm.
So 97% of startups fail.
Mm-hmm.
Based on what we're saying, I'm going to use the wrong word.
But watch this, real quick. That number needs to be pulled apart.
Yes.
Because what's the percentage of white businesses that fail? What percentage of black people businesses fail? Because you'll find out the numbers drastically shift.
Okay. So.
It's crazy.
So. Stay up here. The thought that I just had was that failure rate is right. I'm using, don't get hung up on that word. Like it's a
bell curve.
It's right, but if I'm looking at that, the goal is not to try to beat that. The goal is to stay in the game. I'm trying to piece together when you see something like when you see a statistic that is basically saying combination of volatility, randomness, uncertainty is going to have a high failure rate. That's not incorrect.
It says
It just is.
It just is, yeah, just is.
So then, in response to that, you would say my goal that your goal is to try and stay in the game and not to say, well, not to try and beat something like that. Like
no, stop, slow down, because you're kind of like fudging too many things together. Let's pull this apart. One, when you say 3% are surviving the business, under how large is that number? How many people? So let's say Shakina's two brothers who ain't really good at business at all get into business, right? They're part of the 97%. But they don't do no studying, no practicing. They just like, I think I could do this, right? Boom, they out the game, right? How many people like Shakina's been in class for 6 years practicing her art? She might be in a 40%. See the difference? So now number two, once she's in the game, nothing guarantees her to stay in the game. So you got to learn how to play the game you're in, because everything you do in life is about odds. Even you sitting here is an odd game. There's nothing in this world is guaranteed in your lifetime. Because even when you die, you don't know what is even, like, even when you talk about climate change, I hate climate change conversations because I'm not seeing the proper numbers for me to really align with these conversations. I'm not saying that I'm not a climate change denier, nor am I a climate change activist. I'm saying I have to understand the scope of time that you're analyzing these numbers. And I don't know if this is a statement of human interaction, or is this part of the evolutional adjustments towards population growth and other things, right? I don't know what this means. And so when I hear these conversations, there's a lot of assumptions that's built in on the back end. And so until you pull numbers apart, another thing too, statistics and probability thinking don't work well together. You got to be able to pull. So when you say statistically, this large group of people, and this is the word I'm using, you got to be able to pull numbers apart to see what the numbers are really saying, because statistics can blind you. And there was this one famous dude that said, it was this country I forgot what country it was. It was struggling, and the guy went in and said, they asked this economist, well, how do you think we can fix our nation? He's like, get rid of statistics. You're making the worst decisions ever. Because you don't see the different variables. This is how racism actually works modern day. If I look at black people through statistics, I don't see, even when you say LGBTQ+, they're not the same. That community has diversity like a motherfucker. And there's racism internal, there's sexism internal, there's like this group don't like this. Like when Dave Chappelle talked about that shit, there was some truth to that. Because from working in the community, you realize, oh, if this is announced in the corporate office and it's become contagious in the corporate office, it's not contagious in the streets. There's some gay people that are friendly, lovely, caring, and there's some gay people who are assholes. There's some gay people who are smart, there's some gay people who are unintelligent. There's some gay people who are healthy, there's some gay people who are unhealthy, just like every other fucking group. But what happens when you use these terms, these terminologies, we overgeneralize, and through our overgeneralization, we start to use our probability thinking only to produce warped facts. So in order for you to make decisions, so let me make it even easier. Let's talk business. I'm going to move my product from California to New York. I don't realize I think like a California boy now. No matter how much I think within the bubble of California. When my product goes to New York, I can't assume all of my experiences in California has any value about the market I'm trying to learn. Now, the market I'm trying to learn, I cannot say New Yorkans. I gotta send specialists into New York and understand each group and their causation of their relationship to my particular product to be successful in New York. Otherwise, I'm gonna fail in New York because I look at New York as a New Yorkin thing. East Coast. What the fuck does that mean? See? So in the end, statistics and large numbers, you got to be able to pull numbers apart for you to sell a product to somebody and say, oh, if I'm selling to the Jamaicans in this part of Queens is different than Jamaicans in upstate New York. It's just a different energy. So when it goes up here, you better lead with this statement on your branding, as opposed to here, you better lead with these words on your branding.
That's what I'm what I'm trying to understand, I guess what I'm trying to piece together is, so what I heard you say is ignore statistics.
I just say ignore. I say they overuse, they use improperly.
So you have to get underneath them to understand where the nuances are.
Yeah.
Once I understand the nuances, I don't know, say the real number of months.
Your eyes will change because based upon your nuances. But there is no guarantee in this game at all. So to even seek out guarantees, there's a lot of judgments that have to happen to survive. If that's the case, jobs create the false sense of stability.
Yep.
But we all find out, and as you get closer to 40, you're going to feel probability. Because when you get close to 40, what happens is that the young people are knocking on the door for your position. Mm-hmm. And because they're trying to stay competitive, your $200,000 a year becomes like, I could pay Shakina 160 and she's 22. She's going to be happy as fuck. Mm-hmm. Right? And you're going to feel that pressure because you start seeing friends of yours drop around you. And all of a sudden that false sense of stability that you were promised was not there. Just this whole time they designed an environment to give you this false sense of you're stable. So when you go to the real world, now you live in the world that you really live in, which is everything's unstable. Especially when you're young, you don't see a high death rate in most cases, right? So you start thinking, oh, my friends are going to be here for long, especially in high school. You think all your friends in high school are going to still be your friends and still get old and go, and then you start watching them drop off. Around 30s, you start seeing a higher, faster rate of death. 40s, higher, fast. 50s, 60s, almost all of them gone, right? And you realize, oh, even my life is volatile.
So then I'm looking for real world, and my goal is to extend my runway as long as I can. I'm still thinking.
You're playing to win. You're playing to win. You're not trying to survive. You're playing to win. Survive is okay, but playing to win. If you're playing to win, we're not playing survival. We're not talking survival talk.
Right.
So if Shakina don't want to run a business where she's just breaking even every month and just paying her bills, mm-hmm. There's no desire. Mm-hmm. She wants to be successful, expand, and grow, right? Because mm-hmm. growth is a form of survival in business. That's part of her redundancy mm-hmm. and modularity, right? Mm-hmm. So in the end, she's playing probability games.
Okay.
Got it? Okay. Hit this cognitive distortion. Everybody good with that? Any questions about probability before we jump any further? I try to hit y'all in the stomach with this one. Yeah, hey, you missed go back and watch last week's class because it primed it a lot. But this was the end of probability because we got into it deeply last week. It's just one of those things where, like I said, I'm going to expose you guys to so many different ways of thinking that you'll go back and listen to the Science of Success and be like, this shit is hella weak. And I decided to go after, I want to hope to become a little bit more aggressive towards people who's ready to cross over. I think when I first built it, I was built it for people who had jobs who say, I want to be an entrepreneur. Now I'm trying to push for people who either want to be upper management or already are seasoned entrepreneur or ready to get in the game. And so I'm giving you methods that you can learn through bumps and falling on the ground. You're still going to fall, but at least you have an idea where to reach and start to unravel and get there faster than your competition. 2, oppression is not based upon necessarily what they can do to you. It's what you don't know what to do when they do. Mm-hmm. Everybody has a right, because you're going to, look, as you gain power, you're going to launch attacks. And you have to master attacks. That's part of the game. You're going to fire off you're going to be a competition. Look, Shakina can grow her gym, and all of a sudden she's launching attacks against 24-hour fitness. It's a possible chance. And 24-hour fitness can say, damn, Shakina, you racist. But she's fighting for her portion of the market. Similar to how Samsung will throw a blow at Apple and Apple will throw a blow at Samsung every once in a while, right? Because they understand they're fighting for their portion of the market, right? But what makes you a strong business, it's a blow ain't a blow to you because you're playing the same game. It's just like a check move. Oh, check. Okay, cool. Like imagine if you play chess on the streets and every time somebody won, they fuck the other person up. That's how y'all treat business. If you lose a chess game, y'all want to beat somebody's ass. But in business, I'm supposed to whoop your ass. And if you can't stop me, go practice, dog, or get the fuck off this chessboard and let somebody who know how to play. I hate playing dominoes with rookies. That shit is stressful. Motherfucker, you do not know how to count. You should sit down with a calculator and a computer. And you need somebody who can type at least 60 words a minute to put these motherfucking moves in the system as I whoop your ass. And then study this shit and don't come back till you learn some shit. But literally, that's how business is the same way. My job is to whoop that ass. I'm not going to play dominoes with you. Like, if I was younger and my son was trying to play basketball and I was better than him, I would whoop his ass every game until he could whoop me. I'm not going to be like, oh, you got me, son. Oh, you so fast. Oh, my God. Get that shit out of here. Let me play some basketball. Because as he gets older, this is the entry game to the game he's going to be playing for the rest of his life. If he goes against a serious defensive player, that defensive player is not going to play softball with him. He's trying to whoop that ass because they want to win. But when the game is over, we're going to go have dinner together. And guess what? You beating my ass ain't your fault. You beating my ass is my fault. So that's when I talk about racism. White folks whooping our ass, we got work to do. Because asking them to play softer, Jordan, can you just not make so many shots? Jeez. Kobe, why you gotta be Black Mamba? My God. Curry, can you just do layups? All that fucking 3-point shooting is killing my nerves. It doesn't feel right. I feel like this is just straight racist. I can't shoot like light-skinned people. That's just light-skinned joke, whatever. For my light-skinned family, just don't get sensitive. Fuck y'all. But no. We had a light-skinned versus dark-skinned battle in the office. Masham was light-skinned, and I think who was talking shit? Was that you? Oh yeah, Tennille and Masham was arguing, and I think Danielle was like, yeah, I don't understand these light-skinned are kids. But it was all we cap in our office. So if some of y'all at home and just waiting to get set off on me too, just cancel class, go home and hate me. I don't whatever. Fuck you.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Okay. Fallacy of change.
Now this is the last kind of distortions, and then next we're gonna jump into fallacies, which is things your brain tells you is true that are far from true, but they feel so fucking real, which is gonna help you with your probability thinking. I'm gonna the next podcast I'm gonna put out tonight is a probability thinking podcast. I'm gonna launch 3 different levels of probability thinking. I want you to hear, and I want you to just see probability thinking in everything they say. You're gonna be like, this shit is a superpower. When you guys learn probability thinking, and then I want you to go around and meet other Black entrepreneurs and see how many few people understand probability thinking. This is when you start to see the difference between high performances and low performances. One of the major tools that you will see that separates the high performance from low performance is probability thinking. It is not even known in our fucking communities that this is a fucking thing. All right, let's do this fallacy of change. Let's go.
The fallacy of change has you expecting other people will change their ways to suit your expectations or needs, particularly when you pressure them enough.
Say again. So the fallacy of change has you expecting other people will change their ways and suit your expectations or needs, particularly when you pressure them enough. Does that sound like a march? Does that sound like... Yeah, let me say this real quick. If you believe in marches, you're like, nah, then show me statistics. Show me where they work. Now, does public lower pressure work? Yes, it does. But a lot of times, we running around here like shaming is a form of that, a form of situation, but it's also people who also launch a lot of emotional rhetoric when you want to make a decision, just to get you to conform to the decision. I had this one lady I used to date back in the days. I never called a woman out of her name ever except this one woman, because she was controlling me through this fallacy of change. And she would start these arguments with me all the time, but to control my time and my commitment and my interests. And one day I just said to her, hey, listen, sis, you start a lot of arguments to control me. And I'm not into being controlled like that. So sis, if this is how you get down, I'm gonna back up. This is when she made me call her name. She said, fuck you with that little soft-ass voice you're using. I don't need all that fucking soft-ass, punk-ass voice you're using. You can imagine everything else that happened out of my mouth at that point. So go ahead, read the next point.
Example, you want your partner to focus only on you, despite knowing that they've always been very social and value time with friends.
So you use all that emotional energy to what?
So every time they go out, You let them know it's not okay with you. Eventually, you know they will change their ways and want to stay home all the time.
I had another young lady I dated who got me in this too. So she would hit me with this. Now, mind you, I was no good. I was really young then. Yeah, I ain't no good either. Whatever. I was really young, so I was. Come on, man. I was no good. And so she would hit me with so many guilt trips. I would stay with her, but I would fall asleep. This is no exaggeration. I would fall asleep every day at 6 o'clock in the day because she was so boring. I would be asleep to the next day to 6 o'clock. Oh my God, you bored. Oh my. And that shit lasted for about a month. And I was like, I can't. I don't care if you just come out to hate me. I got to go. I can't do this no more. Like she was just so boring. But she used all these emotional guilt trips and all these conversations. And she just wore me down over time. And I just spent a whole month falling asleep at 6 o'clock every day. And I'm not exaggerating this shit. I don't go to bed till 3 o'clock in the morning every day. But that time, I just couldn't take her. It's just, oh. But that's a fallacy of change. And the problem with that is that you eventually do push people away from you. And you become this very controlling shit. And you end up having a tendency to have very weak friends. What's adjustment solution? So you want me to talk to you about yourself real quick? No, just play it. No, okay. Part of kind of distortions that we've been going through is being able to see your thoughts, almost become a separate person from yourself. And to be able to ask yourself, is that true? And why am I doing this? Next thing is that Risha sent me this cool podcast. And he was talking about how when we argue social justice arguments, which is a form of policy of change, you got to ask yourself, what is the outcome? If you don't have an outcome, fuck your race, fuck your gender, fuck all that shit. If you say, nah, you shouldn't say this. Why? What's the outcome? Because I just feel better and that's policy of change. You're not going to do that shit to me. Fuck you and the horse you just rolled in on. But if you say, no, don't do that because it has this impact or implies this or is causing this disruption, I have to listen to that. That's the difference. That's why social justice is often lost, is because we don't link it to an outcome. Where are we going with this? Which is fine. Everybody has a right to demand more rights, and I'm totally with that. Just the way you anchor it is by outcome. Next one.
Global.
By the way, this is tonight's class, but I don't know if you're gonna get through it. But this is the next in the Factfulness book. We're gonna be talking about this, but in a broader scale.
Global labeling. Labeling or mislabeling refers to taking a single attribute and turning it into an absolute.
Black people, gay, as in the gay community, white people, global labeling. What the fuck is black people, gay people, white people, Asian Pacific people, Latino people, indigenous people? Do you understand how much fucking diversity there is in the fucking world? And labeling, I'm a he. My name's Nana. I'm a he, him. And come on, man. If y'all don't cut this shit out, like we need that. Hey, like sis, no problem. She, her, whatever. Listen, what does that mean? What the fuck are you asking for? If we don't have that real deeper conversation at some point, we're never going to satisfy the problem, because all we're doing is like, if you feel ugly, you don't comb your hair, your skin is fucked up, and you eat cookies for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and you drink soda to wash it down, me not calling you ugly and fat ain't got shit to do with that, nothing. If I stop calling you that, it doesn't relieve the problem that you just gotta start drinking sugar to wash your cookies down. You gotta wash your face, you gotta comb your hair. Because you live in a group, and groups require certain type of ways to show up to recognize status. And the way you carry yourself is you're shrinking your status in the group. That's your choice. It's okay. Now, I don't think I have the right to insult you and hurt your feelings. But don't act like because I don't say it, you're not. If you ain't shit, you still ain't shit. If nobody said you ain't shit, Look at your bank account. Your bank account's telling you ain't shit. Look at your kids. They all gone, don't want to fuck with you. You ain't shit. Look at your nasty ass house. You ain't shit. Look at the job. The biggest job you ever had was McDonald's fry person. You ain't shit. And you're 55. Right? But in the end, you be like, no, don't call me ain't shit because I'm not going to be hated on by you. Me? Hated on your fried cooking ass? That washed cookies down with soda? Oh, okay. I can see how it caused that. I can see it. Get the fuck out of here. We're too busy pointing outwards and look at the world to make our lives better when really the change in our world starts inside of ourselves. Every human being in the world can be beautiful if they start to work on inside themselves. The physical part is just an early labeling. It's not the completion of a human being. The reason I know that is because when I was 21, the ugliest dude in our block had the baddest sister in our block. And when I hung out with him, I understood why. Beautiful dude. Not easy to look at for me, but beautiful dude. Give me advice while I look this way. Let's play. No, but he was a beautiful person. You know, just play it. And that's why I was just stupid. Well, keep going.
This happens when you judge and then define yourself or others based on an isolated event.
Oh, he racist. She racist. Keep going.
The labels assigned are usually negative and extreme.
So she does this. Keep going.
Example, you see your new teammate applying makeup before a meeting and you call them shallow. Or they don't submit a report on time and you label them useless.
Now, this is business. This is how you judge a lot of people. This is something that I had to be, like Mashama helped me with this one. This was one of my weaknesses because I came from the pro-black movement. So that's what the pro-black movement is all about, global labeling. See, the black man was the original man. I don't know what the fuck that means after billions and billions and billions of people, but we're the original man in a small town that represented, in those places that we were the original man, it might have been maybe 30,000 people total. Maybe. It might have been 10,000 people. So billions of us today and the billions and billions and billions and billions that came after that, she defined herself by 10,000? Flaw in rationalization, right? But yet, global labeling made it easy for me to do that. So then when I stopped global labeling and I started running my business, that's why a lot of conscious people do bad in business, I continue to global label. You know, my customers, these people over here, I was using flawed logic that I got from the conscious community to try to transfer it to the business world, which was disconnected from reality. Keep going.
This is an extreme form of overgeneralization that leads you to judge an action without taking the context into account.
Oh, that word context again, huh? You judge an action. This is why tit for tat arguing destroys your thinking because you're losing a healthy relationship with context. If I'm arguing with you on, you said, no, you said, no, you said, no, you said, you did. What was the context? If we don't have context, I don't want to think like that. It hurts my brain because why? What happens when you do that kind of non-contextual dives is you're mislabeling and you're misjudging everything around you, which is kind of tying back to your probability thinking. Keep going.
This, in turn, leads you to see yourself and others in ways that might not be accurate.
Wait. You say this. Wait. Go back. It said this in turn leads you to see yourself. Yourself. So the way you judge the outside world is going to impact yourself, huh? And others in a way that might not be accurate. So how are you doing market analysis if you're global labeling? You know what's wrong with black people? You know, I know it's black niggas in East Oakland. There's a difference between black people and niggas. You know, that's a difference. This is stupid shit I've heard us articulate from a fucking comedian. Chris Rock says this shit, and now we're preaching it like it came from Jesus.
Mike Epps, too.
Yeah, Mike. Oh, please, Mike Epps. You ever see his baby mamas? Cut it out. So anyway, so the reality is that, because Mike Epps comes from, he has a hood, that's a real hood kid. So, I'll go to hell for that one. Shit, he can't whip me. Anyway, point is this. So the reality is that this global labeling undermines our ability to reach our customers. If you really pay attention to why you should not be racist and why you should embrace diversity, it's the smartest business decision in the world, but the way they embrace it by popular society culture is the most damaging way to do it in the world. Go ahead. Pass the microphone back. So go ahead, because y'all can see you over there. You look here. You got ants in your pants and you want to dance. Go ahead and ask a question. No. And first of all, and she's right, and she's a thinker, because if you pay attention to her posts, she don't be posting no superficial shit. She'll be like, "Hey y'all, pink's the new color. See y'all later. Bye. Click, click. Business." She be dropping straight dimes of just simple questions. Oh, I was just processing, probably thinking the shit just blew my mind. Talk to y'all later. Bye.
So in thinking about global labeling and trying to prevent doing that, and let's take the model of a HBCU, right?
Mhm.
There are assumptions that I make about the culture at a HBCU. Not to say not all Black people are monolithic.
Speak a little louder, because
I'm gonna make an assumption if I think about like an HBCU, like Texas Southern. I'm gonna make an assumption that there are these different cultural groups of people at that school. So that would be me global labeling, right? Okay.
So if you wanted to become more accurate, you can have global. Okay, first of all, global labeling will happen, and it's you guys got to know it's not true. So it's the way we talk as a people. Human beings just talk like that. We talk labels, but you just got to know it's not true when it comes time to really act on it. So if I'm gonna spend money, there ain't no such thing as LGBTQ+. There's no such thing. Because there's so much diversity in that, you would have to have multiple categories for each one of those letters, and then different variances that kind of sit on the edges of all those. That's why I think they have 97 flags for the gay community. That's the reality of life, is that they that complex and diverse. They're not 5 different groups plus. Well, I think plus gives you permission to say more. But the reality is that human beings are so you could say, I assume that people at HBCU are going to these colleges for these purposes. Now let me investigate and see how close my assumptions are, and is there any outliers, any type of evolution in my assessment since I last assessed it? Because let's say you assessed it 5 years ago, but the students that come in this year are some other shit you never knew existed, right? Which is more than likely. So anytime you need to spend money, then even if it's just a simple of identifying, like in a spy game, identifying key people that can represent leaders in different ways of thinking, and just at least extracting from them to give you a educated guess, a hypothesis, that's cool. What you don't do is sit in California and think that anything you say has any value for something that you don't be around all the time. Just doesn't. And when I'm making decisions in business, my team will do it all the time. They make an assumption. I'm like, how do you know that? How the fuck do you know that? Like you only can think about 150 people maximum in your thinking. You can't think about millions of people, especially millions of people in other states, other countries, other continents. You just can't do it. And so being able to say to yourself, okay, this is what I think they're doing. Here's some evidence of things that give me some evidence of why they're doing what they're doing. And there's things you can read by their outcomes and look at the numbers. There's some things that give you some insights. But it's a combination of the insights you're doing from digital, looking at the numbers and the stories and the narratives surrounding the school, and then getting somebody on ground level and going, oh, that's why you do it. Which I'm gonna get into. That's part the next big part of our class. Keep going.
Assigning labels to others can impact how you interact with them.
Mm-hmm.
This, in turn, could add friction to your relationship.
So when you sign clients, even the customers you had to come to your business every day, once you give them a label, in the hood, or when you have friends, you give them labels or nicknames or whatever. You kind of like, you know what? You're the girl who cooked great sandwiches. You're the sandwich lady. We do some shit like that, right? That's cool. That can function somewhat, but in business, don't do that. Let people define their own label. And even when they define their own label, in your brain, leave it open. Because it could just be their persona or their perception of themselves. But you should always be an observation of people around you at all times, because people are way more complex. And even if their label is true right now, it's a chance next year that label will be compromised. So when you start imagine Imagine you take on a political title. I'm now a Republican, right? But you've been a Democrat your whole life. But when you come to my office, I'm going to treat you as the Democratic lady. You see the friction's going to start creating, right? I'm not leaving room for you to evolve, and nor am I leaving room for me to evolve. So I want to get away from. I want to be more exploration than definitive. And once again, I'm not saying you're going to be perfect in this space. Just know if you give somebody a definition, don't lock it on any definition you give about anybody. If you say this person is this, always leave room for, but it could be something else. Or it could be something depending on the circumstances, depending on context. It's a cold game. Go ahead.
When you assign those labels to yourself, it can hurt your self-esteem and confidence, leading you to feel insecure and anxious.
There you go. When that shit fires back on you, it causes a lot of mental damage. Mental health is directly tied to this labeling culture. One of the reasons I don't like labeling is not because, oh, I don't like the labels, they get on my nerves, is because I've seen the damage it's causing for a lot of these babies. These children are coming up and they struggling with these titles and these labels and these expectations. Like, think about this. If you black and you work in an all-white environment, you may have been in an all-white environment and they're black. Anybody in this room? Have you seen how they expect you to show up certain kind of ways and it kind of gets irritating after a while? They expect you to say certain things, respond a certain kind of way, show up a certain way, not like this, do like that, right? And if you try to live up to it, you buy into it, what it does to you. Huh? There you go. That's it. So at the end of the day, part of like, it's okay to be a black person who loves punk rock, who climbs mountains, who goes to rap concerts, who eats fried chicken and sushi. That's real talk. But just understand the limits of labeling, because we always do it. Just understand there's a limit to the game. Next one. And you know what? We might not make it past kind of distortions tonight, but I'm gonna show you the theme of the evening. The theme is cold. Go ahead.
Always being right. This desire turns into a cognitive distortion when it trumps everything else, including evidence and other people's feelings. In this cognitive distortion, you see your own opinions as facts of life. This is why you will go to great lengths to prove you're right.
So, by the way, coming out of a movement, this was one of my other ones that I had to work on. Probability thinking broke this shit in half. So I started now saying, what is it I really don't know what I'm saying? What am I assuming? And I use probability thinking. I use first principles to say what are assumptions, right? And also, too, what's right for you may not be right overall. Because the culture in the household you come out of, that's the rights you need to survive in your world. So if I try to have you identify with my right, I might actually cause damage. Or at the size of my business, the size of your business, my right. For example, if I came to your business and be like, yo, Shabisha, you just started the company 3 months ago. How come you ain't got no insurance? How come you ain't got no this? How come you ain't got this kind of license? How come you ain't got this? You in your first 4 or 5 months, you ain't supposed to have all that shit. I need to give you advice based upon where you are, not what's right for me. This is why when y'all take advice from motherfuckers who got jobs and you're an entrepreneur, I laugh at your face. They can't identify your right. They're identifying right, not your right. So a lot of times you want to listen to people because their right offers a new layer of truth, meaning that they're wrong for you, but they're right for many. They're wrong for you, but they're right for many. Go ahead.
Example, you quarrel with your sibling about how your parents haven't supported you enough. You're convinced this was the case all the time, while your sibling believes it varied according to the situation. Since your sibling doesn't feel the same way, you become angry and say things that rub your sibling the wrong way. You know they're getting upset, but you continue the argument to prove your point.
Meaning that the knowledge and the information is subjective, right? It's so many variables that can make the information subjective. It's not concrete. You're not saying that Mac trick is coming, get out the way. It's concrete. That's when right needs to be right and wrong is wrong. Wrong is you're going to visit them on the tombstone. Right is they got out the way. But then there's many things in life that are subjective. Like remember I talked about the bell curve and the fat tail, right? Knowing the difference? You got to know the difference between subjective truth and real truth. Because if you don't have absolute real truth, why are you arguing? You should be exploring together. You should be piquing each other's curiosity to figure out what truth works for both of you guys, right? And sometimes somebody else's falseness is truth for them, and somebody else's truth is false for them. I think I had a conversation with Shakina the other day about, yo, that's your truth, and I need to respect that. It may be false for me, but it's your truth, and I got to respect it. I can't tell you not to believe in that truth. And then there's no right versus wrong here. It's we have to sit in two different truths. Now, I don't know if you guys paying attention to this. I'm removing the comfort of knowing and absolutes this class. I took away the foundation of I know what is next. But let me tell you how stupid that is. The world is random, unpredictable, uncertain, and full of volatility. So if you're living by a false notion of stability and absolute, you're living in an illusion, not the real world. So if you want to live in the real world, this is dog versus wolf. By the way, for those of you at home who never heard the dog versus wolf story, there was this dog was in his backyard, and the wolf walked up to the dog and said, "Man, you live back here?" He said, "Yeah." "This whole backyard is yours." The wolf said, "That's the dog." The dog's like, "Yeah, this is my whole backyard." He goes, "And that's your food too? You got food?" He said, "Yeah." "And water?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh shit. And you got a house of your own with a pillow?" He said, "Yeah." And he looked at the chain around his neck and ran away. Because the wolf realized I could never be a dog. Now, going back to that story, we told the story, and a lot of you guys shaped that story into a strong versus the weak. What you didn't see, what we were trying to argue is, one has a relationship with uncertainty, randomness, and volatility. One has a relationship with the perception of stability, comfort, and guarantees. When you have a job, the challenge you're going to have, the challenge most of us, reason we become part of the 97% of failure is because you're trying to take your stability guarantees and right versus wrong into a world where that does not exist. You're trying to take your opinion and think it's part of the world's opinion. It does not exist. You're trying to take what you call truth into the other world where you say there's a truth. It does not exist. You think your methodology is a smart methodology because you never analyze the system through probability. You see the difference now between the dog versus the wolf? It's not the strong versus the weak. Because a lot of people came at me like, "Nah, tell a story about the dog versus the wolf." I'm like, "Yeah, y'all talking about strength versus weakness." Because we use the word anti-fragile. But anti-fragile is tied to your ability to exist in randomness, volatility, and uncertainty. And that's the world you live in. Right now, tomorrow, somebody can die that you didn't expect, didn't have a plan for. Everybody will get disrupted within this year from something. That might not be death. Might be your car broke down. Might be a car accident. Might be pipes burst in your house. It might be you get hit with a fee or a penalty or fucking jury duty, right? It could be any of those above things, right? But if you live your life expecting that, then your normality comes from accepting that, not going, it should not be there. Many of you guys are depressed and hate the world because the world is doing what it's supposed to do, but in your brain, you have a perfect picture on how the world is supposed to work. Your narrative got you fucked up. You can't think through probability, you think through your narrative. The world sucks. Oakland sucks. No, that's your narrative is being disrupted, not Oakland. Ain't that some cold shit? Y'all look hella quiet. Like y'all just all sitting like everybody's talking to themselves at the next level. I want to hear it. I want to hear what the fuck y'all saying.
I for sure, when I hated the wolf and the dog, because I for sure did see it in that binary way, and didn't. When you just explained it, I was like, "Yep, I did that," so I did. The interesting is because I did that, I distanced myself from that entire. Like I just was like, I'm not engaging it. Loose. I saw it. It was over there, but I didn't really go close over there. So I appreciate it coming back around because I didn't see it that way. But yeah, that was fire.
Yeah, and a lot of times we thought it was like a masculine machismo type of undertone. Because that's how people was echoing it back to me. And I was like, no, it's your ability to normalize randomness, uncertainty, and volatility. And then learn how to build within that system, accepting that's just part of the game. And realize you're playing the odds game, no guarantees. You're not guaranteed to be nowhere 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. Whatever job you have right now, there's no guarantee. When you get fired, you're like, I can't believe they fired me. You should always expect it to be fired or to be let go or the company just fail. You should be building your life if that happens. You're prepared because you built your life in modular. You use a modularity. So when this failed, you already had modules in place to make a next move. But because when you got paid, you spent money assuming that things are going to just go a certain kind of way. Now you sleep on your mama's couch or on your friend's couch being disrespected because you're a woman and she don't want no other woman in her house with her man in the house. By the way, I know that exact same story where this woman literally became homeless because she was performing at a high level with no modularity, no redundancy, was living in a fat-ass condo, and when she lost her job, mind you, she bought a house and a condo, but was still paying for both of them, meaning that everything that she had was relying upon a source of income that was coming from her ability to rent. When she lost her job, when she was a high-paid person working for the hospital system, she couldn't find a job for, I think, 2 years. In those 2 years, she lost everything. She went to go stay with her best friend who used to run around and talk about all these broke bitches. I'm not lying. They would sit together, have dinner together, have drinks, talk about all these broke bitches, all these broke bitches. These bitches don't know how, this is how you have to live in these nice-ass condos. Bitches don't know what's going on with me. This is how I get down, right? Driving a nice brand new Acura with all the bells and whistles and shit. And she had, I remember I went to her house, she had clay pots. All her pots was clay. I said, motherfucker, can I get a sandwich? Right? I'm just impressed, right? Within 1 year and a half, she was living in the bottom of a church with a water leak. Because her best friend, when she go stay with her, said, bitch, you too fine to be at my house. You gotta go. None of her friends, all them high end, bitch, you can't stay with me though. I'm high end. She had fake ass friends because she thought, oh, I was getting friends who can relate to me, but she didn't really see her friends. She was playing the tribal game and using her friends for status purposes. She had no probability thinking, no modularity, no randomness. I mean, no reduction, no redundancy. And because no redundancy and no modularity, when she collapsed, she fell, she had, her family was back from down south and she was the only high performer out here in California. She didn't keep a man because every time she dated somebody, if you weren't ready to marry me in the next professor on this first date, you ready to marry me? I don't want to do a second date with you. So you know what I mean? Man was like, fuck no, I don't even know you, lady. Fuck wrong with you, right? So she's bad as hell, curvy ass body, and nobody wants to fuck with her like that. So no relationship, no family, no backup redundancy in her money spending habits, no quality friends. You see somebody going from living a fly ass life, traveling everywhere, to sleeping in the bottom of a church, getting paid by the church to clean up every day, just enough money so she can go get some food, and that shit lasted for a whole year. When she finally went back to work and she's so traumatized and so fucked up in her mind now, she can't even think. And her first paycheck, you know what she did? She went and got a Benz. Because she's fucked up in the head. But why is she fucked up? Because no one's ever taught that baby how to think. She's not a bad person. She's a wonderful person. Good moral, like I would leave my daughter with her. But and she's a pretty girl. She ain't nowhere near ugly. She ain't nowhere near ugly. But the problem is that she doesn't know how to think. And many of our people don't know how to think. And so we keep having this horrible experiences between our cognitive distortions and not having models and principles on how to think, how to even navigate successful economics, culture, business, life, relationships, family. We got all these horrible old ass slave narratives telling us this is how my grandmama did it, this is how my mama raised me, it must be good for me, it's good for you. That shit fucked up. And so it's important, when I said earlier, you not have enough tension to invest in your own fucking change. It's going to victimize yourself to your own fucked up ass narratives. And there ain't nothing I can do. I'm not going to ever attack you. I love you. I love the girl when she was at the bottom of the church. I didn't find out about it till, she came from the bottom of the church. I loved her from that time to her owning a Mercedes-Benz and not having no furniture in the house. And I still love her if she broke again. But my love have no impact on her life. Zero. Don't use emotional reason because you get mad at me because I said this shit. Then now you're mad at me. You think I need to just cancel this fucking membership. I swear to God. I'm going to do double Netflix on this motherfucker. Right? This is okay. But anyway, the point is this. I was saying is that what is could you imagine if I buy 2 hours of Netflix just get back and somebody be spiteful? Yeah, but if I got 2 hours of Netflix, I ain't fucking with you no more. What? I don't understand the logic. But anyway, don't allow emotional reasoning, which is another kind of distortion, to think that I'm wishing or not wishing you a fucked up life. I'm trying to tell you your struggles are tied to your attention span. And like I said, based on the fear factor and the negativity factor, instinct, the negativity instinct, and the fear instinct, the way your brain is working as you respond to the world around you, you're not leaving any room to invest your attention into your own life. And what you do with your attention, that ain't got shit to do with me, but I'll tell you what it does, it's gonna fuck with you. And then if you invest your attention and you use them same as narratives to process the world around you, you're gonna produce the same outcome. This is why, have you ever noticed that you can hate your mom, but you become her later on? You know how that happens? Because you have most of her narratives. The same family member you hate the most, a lot of times you become them because you never let go of their narratives. Ain't that some cold shit? That's what creates. Yeah, a lot of times our narratives create the give her the microphone because somebody at home cussing me out right now talking about I can't hear her. Give her a microphone. Just over there eating a sandwich. But he's not fat. He's not fat. He's a beautiful man. I said no fat jokes. I said you eating a sandwich. You was not eating a sandwich earlier. You're a beautiful person. You're a beautiful person.
I wonder how your breath gonna be smelling if I didn't give you that gum.
Yeah, whatever, man. I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna say something personally to you. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Asked, can our values and belief systems be built though into our narratives? Like, how do we?
And it absolutely is.
Separate. Because I'm trying to grasp probabilistic thinking. My head is still blown off.
And by the way, that's a good thing. If you get okay, I'm telling Shabisha this. There's things I've learned in the last 10 years that took me almost a month to get. Why did it take me a month to get it? Because it was not in my rational bank. So I went back in my bank and started moving things around like, well, is it like this? Okay, is it like this? No. Is it like, what the fuck is this? Right? And then what happens, I had to literally conjure out of nothing a new module in my brain to say, oh, this is what it is. But then when I put that new module in, it contaminated all my other modules. So now all my other modules just changed, right? But if I can get everything you're saying, you're just inspiring me. You're not teaching me. Teaching you should make you put you in this position where you go, let me just sit with this shit for a minute. And when it finally hits, it should have a chain effect in your values, your principles, and your thinking that warps everything inside of you. And every day you could just be in the shower and be like, wait a minute. And just keep flipping shit. You'll be right now, you'll be jogging one day, be like, Mama, okay, Mom, I was wrong. Yeah, I was wrong. I'm sorry for what I just said last week. I'm sorry. God damn it. Shit. Where you get this from? This thing from class. I'll talk to you about it later, Mom. I apologize. I'm going to send you the money next week. My bad. Bye.
That's what's happening. And so, but I'm a year behind. I'm going to admit that. So I don't even know which year I'm in hope now. Like when he said go do something, so now that I'm actually applying it, like I'm a year ago. Now I hear Court like, that's why I said just do it. That's why I said take away your emotion. Because now probabilistic thinking, like if you don't get a hold of your emotion, you're gonna look like you're not gonna make it. There's no way that you can produce.
That's why the first 6 months of his class, when the course said he's priming you, He was not bullshitting. The shit I'm teaching you now, if you're still struggling with your ego, you're still struggling with your emotions, being hooked, that negative voice in your head is the loudest voice you ever heard. You don't want to change your beliefs because you believe your beliefs are sacred. Any of those type of things that we introduced in the first half of class, if you ain't worked on those principles and we get to these strategical approaches, your brain is going, hold the fuck up. Now you got me saying, if I do this, I gotta give up the ego. You got me fucked up ego. We about to ride. Don't worry about this motherfucker. He crazy. I'm about to get 2 sets of Netflix on that motherfucker there. Right? That's what happens with your brain. Your brain literally does that so fast it's cold. And so the reality is that you have to understand that you have to constantly work on yourself to digest this new information. Then you got to also get past your racial white people voice bias. So a lot of times white people will speak to you and you're like, oh, it's hard to hear him speak to me. He doesn't relate to my culture. If you're gay and he's straight, I can't listen to straight people like that. It's just too much. That bias in itself will help you justify why you can't hear this material right here. Why you think hope, y'all can really learn this on your own if you really wanted to do this on your own. What hope kind of does is I curate, but I also culture. I'm gonna make up a word. I add culture to it, or I culturalize it. I don't know if I made up a word, right? But I add culture to it that allows you to hear shit that white folks probably said to you, but you couldn't hear it because it was white folks. Yeah, but white folks, go with this. You could have did the same translation if you can pull that bias down. White folks may have even came at you crazy one day, but you just thought racism. How the fuck he gonna raise his voice at me? But if you was to actually go back and reflect upon it, you're like, oh shit, I do have a big ass ego. But you can't see it. You can't see it. Or you go hang out with white people and you in protective mode, not curiosity listening mode. So you go to a white event in Walnut Creek and so you're going, hey, what y'all talking about? What's going on over here? Why you feel that way? Like I was just, the guy who wrote Sherlock Holmes is fucking brilliant material. Some of the most brilliant material ever written. Sherlock Holmes. Like if you just listen to like the thinking of Sherlock Holmes is all this stuff put in entertainment. And it's some of the most advanced shit you will ever read or watch on television, right? Sherlock Holmes, by far. And everybody's seen a copy of Sherlock Holmes. Go back now as you've been taking this class and watch an episode of the whole version of Sherlock Holmes. You're like, this shit cold as a motherfucker. You'll be sitting there going, out, if I smoke weed, I'd be high as hell right now because this shit got me fucked up, right? But he also is the creator of Tarzan. Think about that. One of the most racist ass fucking stories ever told. Unga booga, unga booga, unga booga. Oh yeah, I have all these savages. They listen to me. I'm Tarzan. Racist as fuck. Uncle Ruckus' favorite show. Right? Imagine if you found out about the Tarzan first. Would you ever pay attention to Sherlock Holmes? Can you do that? Can you see the complexity of human beings? In 1970s, and we won't get to the fact. Matter of fact, I'm gonna tell. Do we have class next week? Yes. Class next week. Okay. So I'm gonna tell Danielle don't do any work because we got a whole fucking chapter I didn't get to. But I'm gonna end on these points here. So I told I was talking to somebody the other day. Do you know that there's a famous newspaper in the 70s that used to do cartoons on the front, illustrations on the front all the time. But there's a very, very famous newspaper. It was kind of like very progressive, one of the top newspaper companies. They were like a Facebook of the era, but the news, because before there was social media, newspaper companies were like the social media gods, right? Because they controlled marketing, advertisement for news and communications. And I think every time they hit a goal, they would have an office orgy and have a lot of prostitutes come in there. And in the office, just throw a big orgy in the 70s. Ain't nobody got fired, no Me Too, no nothing. That's just the way the world was. And I know it's easy to say, Me Too, how you think is men versus women. Don't get it twisted. There's no way in the world you could create a anti-abortion law without women voting for it. It's not possible. But the narrative tells you women have to, it's men against women. But it's not possible. There's no math. Probability thinking says that's not even close to possible. I'm not saying there's not maybe a few men in that men narrative that buy into this idea, but there must be a dominant idea that captures men and women to say, I'm against abortions. In California, that's not our narrative. So we don't see it. And so it's easy to project a narrative, then we all take on those talking points. So then you see somebody like R. Kelly. As disgusting as we can process it today, go look at your artists from 70s and 80s and 60s. Look at Priscilla Presley. My God, that girl was a baby. It's almost disgusting watching her come off the plane. What I'm trying to explain to you is that the world is so complex, we don't realize how much we're trying to think through the media, we stop thinking for ourselves. And probability thinking tells you media sucks. Once you learn probability thinking, you will see patterns. Okay, even though I don't believe in non-binary for thousands of reasons, and I can sit here for a whole 2 classes and argue non-binary is really just the new hippie movement, you still got to recognize it. Because if enough people believe it, it becomes a pattern in society that disrupts other patterns. So you don't have to agree with something to not see the value of it. So if I watch news, I'm watching values and patterns evolve, but I'm not listening to the narrative to how I need to think. So if somebody tells me A, B, C, D, E, F, G is why the world going bad, you might find it's really only A, and you just added B, C, D, E, F, G for your own agenda to drive a different argument. Or if you do the other opposition and we're using probability, it needs to go bad. If you look at Trump through rationalization and narratives, you would think everything he did was stupid. But if you look at Trump through probability, you realize, actually, that was true. Based on the numbers, that was true. Based on possibility, that was true. And once you understand probability, you realize it's not that fucking easy. Right? And so you have to understand that narratives could be your demise, even though they're wrapped in so many positive feelings and emotions. Check your narratives at the door if you want to do this business shit. But when you do this is my last point. When you learn to check your narratives at the door, you do understand you're going to disconnect from the tribe that gives you identity. So if you were known for being part of this particular group, you won't be necessarily part of that tribe because you won't share all their narratives. And after a while, they will sense it, and there'll be a soft disconnect. They won't be like they won't call you out your name, chase you, or what. They just slowly but surely be like, they don't call you no more. But in business, you also know how to sell to that tribe too. Any questions before we go home? Hopefully I didn't fuck y'all up enough. I did. All that certainty shit, get rid of it. It doesn't work in the world that you live in. We live in a world that's uncertain, random, and volatile. If you build your thinking around that, you can make moves that others can never dream of making. And most corporate American people, most government job people, don't even know what that feels like and what that thought even exists. So, welcome to the Entrepreneur Talk. This ain't that Tony Robbins shit where I'm working within your rational limitations and all I'm doing is really inspiring you. Because that's what Tony Robbins said. He just inspires. He's the best inspirational, motivational person I've ever seen, to the point that I respect his game. But he ain't teaching this shit. And the reason he ain't teaching this shit is because it's outside the realm of the majority. You can't have a large movement that he has and teach like this. It just doesn't line up with his numbers. He may have taught this when he first started, but once he grew to a certain point, it does challenge his numbers. All right. That being said, as they say in Jerusalem, what do they say, Josh? They say in Jerusalem? Man, I don't understand how you be rolling, man. You don't even know nothing the Jews do. Anyway, all right. That's like me saying I'm black, and I'm like, I don't know what black people do. Anyway, shalom. Shalom, y'all. As they say in Jerusalem, shalom. See y'all later. Peace.